Welcome everyone to yet another episode of the Whitepill. It's been a minute since we've had a Wednesday episode, so it's good to be back. And as always, joined by my co-host, Mr. Fireside Talks. Thank you for making the time today.
Hello. Always a pleasure.
Beautiful. Okay, we're all good. So before we get started on the show today, as per always, if you want to support the show, check out the link of all links, which can be found in the bio or description of every episode at bio.link/whitepill. Supporting the show, honestly, just liking, commenting, subscribing, watching is more than enough. But if you want to go further, you're more than welcome to send me some crypto. There's all the links to the wallets there. So check it out there. Besides that, there's a referral link to both Proton and Rumble. If you use either of those services, you're more than welcome to check them out. It'll be in the description. And yeah, besides that, without further ado, we'll get into the show. Topic for today, I forgot to write a post about this earlier, but essentially we're going to be going over... This is a little bit late, but with the hiatus that we took last week, we felt that we needed to get the show out anyways, because not really a lot happening on the conservative side of the aisle these days, especially with the Liberal victory. Not really anything exciting. But one of the things that went viral about 2 weeks ago or so was when the leader of the Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, went on a podcast tour. So he did 2 podcasts, and I think he went to New York as well to make some speeches. I don't remember if he actually met with any delegates or anybody in the United States government, but it was essentially a speaking tour that he did. The reactions to it online were, I mean, just as I expected. But anyways, that's essentially what we're going to be covering is Pierre Poilievre's Mr. Worldwide tour. Carney had one of his own, so I guess Pierre just didn't want to be left out. Decided that it was his chance at doing that. I also realized, I have the wrong keyboard. But anyways, we'll get into all that. But before we get into the details, what did you think of the episodes? I don't know, the reactions to them when you saw them.
It's actually interesting that you mentioned that because I saw that as well. We were talking about looking at Rogan's podcasts and the Diary of a CEO podcasts, and I hadn't listened to the Diary of a CEO podcast yet when I was looking through YouTube, and all of a sudden I saw a video that said, in big bold letters, it goes, "Oh, this is the Pierre interview you need to see," So I was expecting more, Ultimately, I found it very disappointing. And especially after watching the Rogan podcast, it seemed like a lot of the same talking points. He talked about specific financial and bureaucratic issues in Canada, and then started getting a little bit more into his philosophy on, making, he said this multiple times, making Canada like the freest country in the world, and kind of cracking the same jokes. So I don't know. It wasn't the meat and potatoes I was expecting. I was expecting, if not a deep dive from Poilievre on his perspective of Canada and its current progression, then somebody across from him, like Joe Rogan, actually grilling him on certain topics. And yeah, I don't know. I didn't see the hype from the reaction. Everybody was saying, "Oh, this is so great that we get to see Poilievre on multiple podcasts of over an hour, 2 hours, so on." And it's like, yeah, but he didn't. I don't know. It doesn't make me feel confident in the man at all. If anything, it just gives me more questions. And I was going to ask you the same thing. Well, your kind of general thoughts on both podcasts there, kind of just what you thought and how you felt, kind of after listening to them.
It was just it was par for the course of the messaging. What was, I think, to me, what was not more important, but something that was highlighted to me was the reaction of all the conservative influencers that are basically sucking Pierre off at every chance that they
Yeah.
get. Like Mario, what's his face, the bald fuck, the guy that does God, this guy's fucking. Oh boy, his content is so annoying. He makes these videos. Mario Zelaya, this guy right here. The videos that he makes, it's literally just him in vertical frame. Let's see if we can pull one up. His classic finger up. This shit pisses me off. Like fucking bro. He's just sitting there in silence, nodding along, raises his finger. Oh, look at this or look at that, bro. Fucking like, just say something of substance. Like, my God.
Mm.
Oh yeah, let me share my
Yeah, no,
screen.
I completely agree with what you're saying there, because I was on Twitter and I saw that as well. People saying like in the comments, just basically sucking them off. Everybody else, I can see other people's comments, people being more critical, not straight out and being like, "Oh, Poilievre is a Nazi and he's against the LGBTQ community and blah blah blah." It's like not those kind of people, but people actually saying like, "Okay, so you have outlined this as a problem, but you've then all of a sudden you diverted the topic." You know, I found that he did that a lot as well, as you know, politicians do. Um, but then somebody immediately comments underneath and says, "Oh, Poilievre is the best. He's our savior," so on and so forth. It's like, what? Are we watching the same thing?
Well, fuck the internet comments, because who knows like how many of those are bots. But the commentary from the conservative influencers in Canada is at least from the popular ones, that to me was it was very telling. It was they behaved the exact same way that they did during the conservative what was it, the Conservative Party's convention, the exact same way, just kind of going along with the major party line. They weren't really, the commentary and the reaction that they had to these podcasts is that they were just glad that he finally went on the show, but they weren't actually, I don't know, it didn't feel like they had anything of substance to contribute regarding the reactions. Like, once again, he's not being held to any kind of strong standard. It's like, you know what it is? I've made this post a couple days ago, that like Canada is the land of the raped. Like the true north, strong and raped. And some people are so raped that they are willing to accept the most minimal, lukewarm milk toast conservative just because it is in opposition to the liberals. And that's a problem, because now you're settling. You're not actually fighting or trying to support someone who is going to fundamentally change the country in a significant way. Something that actually that has to be done. Not just rubber stamping permits or changing laws, but like a genuine cultural shift that really does need to happen. Because if it doesn't, then Canada just becomes an economic zone where anyone and everyone can become a citizen, just about. And so then we no longer have a culture of which to speak of.
Mm.
Like, there was no actual pushback to anything that was said on either show that was significant enough to make me think that this man was a strong political contender. And once again, like the idea of being raped, I'm not saying that just to like use the visceral imagery of that to cheapen it. I'm not just throwing that out there to be edgy. I do mean that. Like, you are forced to go through an experience that you then end up paying for, a painful experience that you then end up paying for the rest of your life, done at the hands of somebody who may or may not see the consequences of their actions come back onto them. That's what
Mm.
we're living through in Canada. I mean, for fuck's sake, I saw a guy make a post, this journalist for CTV. He's part of the admin there during last weekend. He's like, "Oh man, this No Frills is so goated with their chicken prices." I'm like, dude, you're so fucking like mentally raped. You think that like this is a good price for chicken? It was
Mm.
like 5 something a pound. And I'm like, have you seen what the Americans pay?
Jesus.
Like $5 a pound is like, that's a good price now relative to other stores and prices, but it's not near where it actually should be if we weren't getting so fucking strangled and raped at the fucking checkout. Like this level of acceptance that Canadians have had with their way of life, it is by no shortage, like, just absolutely disgusting what people have tolerated from their government, both on the liberal and the conservative side. So ultimately, tying it back to the podcasts, the Pierre's appearances on them and what he said and all the points that he's made and the reactions that he've had, it's just a continuation of the same. This is clearly just Pierre's attempt to try to level the playing field somehow so that Carney's global tour, his WEF speech, all these overtures that he's made on the global stage, Pierre was clearly trying to match that energy and try to present a different vision of Canada. But what he's giving us, really, it ends up being so minimal and so infinitesimal to what actually needs to happen, that it's not convincing. It's not convincing at all that this guy's actually going to do what needs to be done. And like we were talking off stream, if this is the platform that he's going to run on in the next election, if he even stays on as the leader by the time the next election rolls around, I'm not voting for him. I'm not voting for the Conservatives. I'm not looking to play half measures. I'm not looking to get second place. I want to fucking win. I want to win, and I want this country to be turned around in such a significant way that it ends up becoming a golden age. I don't want this fucking incremental uphill climb where, oh, we get another pipeline, great. Oh, we get less taxed. Oh, okay, great. But like, what does it mean to be a Canadian? Are we still going to have to deal with the heightened levels of immigration? Are we still going to deal with the fact that now they've extended citizenship to the children and the grandchildren of people that have spent, what is it, like 3 months or like however many years in Canada? Like, are we still going to...
Yeah, I think it's 3 years, yeah.
Like, are we still going to have that policy? Like, what are we actually talking about? Are we going to seriously tackle the challenge of our failing army? The fact that, like, just yesterday I saw an article saying that there was an investigation in, like, I think 32 out of 36 quarters in this one base that straight up didn't have adequate plumbing, didn't have access to clean water, and these are the people that we want to send to a conflict. God forbid one happens and we have to send our sons and daughters to fight on our behalf. This is the conditions that they live in. Like, what the fuck are we talking about here?
Yeah, go fight for us, but go fight for your broken toilet, you know?
Like,
return to your taps that don't work.
Like, what are we doing here? I don't understand. Yeah. So anyways, that, like, it's more of the same. This is my long ass answers. It's more of the same. The podcast appearances were more of the same. Joe Rogan went just about as how I expected, and I guess we'll talk about that first. 90% of it, or at least like more than half of it, was them talking about fucking kettlebells and exercise. Which, like, is he just trying to appeal to the dude bros? Like, I don't understand.
He was. That was my biggest gripe with the Rogan podcast, was that I feel like Pierre used his background in sports and his knowledge of, like, the legends to distract Joe. That's how I felt it went down. Like, because halfway through the podcast, and I told you this before, it seemed like Poilievre was interviewing Rogan.
Mm-hmm.
He was the one asking the questions, like, oh, how would you think so-and-so would have gone? Like, I don't even remember the questions because, again, they weren't important to Canada. They were about wrestling history or something else along that line, training with, some legend. I don't remember exactly, but it's like, yeah. And it's like, okay, well, what are we talking about? You're distracting Joe with sports. And Joe, I don't want to say I'm not going to call him a meathead, right? Because obviously I don't believe that. But it's like you've appealed to this one topic that he could talk about for hours and hours and days and days and days. And you just led him astray. But at the same time, Joe never really kept like a focus on Pierre and said, hey, let's address this. Let's address this question about Canada. Let's address this question about the relationship between Canada and the U.S., right? What can Canada offer? How should the U.S. be reacting? How should your liberal government be performing? And why should the Canadian people trust in the conservative opposition later on? Like, real questions. And it kind of brings me back to what we were saying before about what kind of Pierre's platform is and kind of where he's going, what kind of path he's on. And I mentioned this before the podcast and saying it almost seems like he's content to be in the seat of the opposition. Because in the podcast, in the Rogan podcast, he says, "Well, I'm His Majesty's loyal opposition. Like I'm loyal to the country while still opposing you, and I want the government to steal my ideas." Well, that's great and all, but that's not an end game, and that's not a fix for Canada. Because otherwise, all you're doing is just giving the Liberals ideas. And like we saw with the election, the Liberals will just employ those ideas, and now they're Liberal ideas. Right now, it's a Liberal achievement. So sitting in your seat as an opposition and being happy with just the government stealing your ideas isn't good enough. Right? Which makes me think also that why isn't he really touching any of these touchy subjects, you know, these hard-fought lines, these white picket fences? Why is he not like addressing these issues? And it almost feels like he's riding the wave of his popularity. Because he grew up, he blew up really fast, right? All of a sudden, conservatives had this guy to, you know, kind of rally behind, and there's the video of him eating the apple, which was, you know, touched upon at one point. But I don't know what his perspective is or what how far he's planning to walk. But it's not, like I said before the podcast, he's not pushing the envelope hard enough. And I think that's what I'm more disappointed about than anything else, right? Is like, and like you said, there's nothing we can do at this point. You know, this is kind of where we're at, and this is how we have to deal with it. Absolutely, but it's just disheartening to see.
Yeah, Joe Rogan, he tried to like give him an out at one point, and by mentioning the convoy and the fact that people's bank accounts were frozen, and Pierre Poilievre just had some soft aside. Like what was the? See if I can find it in the transcript here.
Well, he basically says that you know, the Rogan mentions how the trucker convoy and the government, you know, it's terrible handling of it, and then Pierre almost immediately moves on to talking about Joe's comedy career.
Well, it says here, and just when we saw what happened with COVID, with just what happened with the truckers and people's accounts getting shut down for donating to the truckers, the whole thing was so concerning because Canada was like part of America almost. And then he immediately talks about the Montreal Comedy Festival and transitioning to that.
Mm-hmm. Like huge divert, huge.
Yeah, I really didn't. I don't understand. And yeah, then the next time that truck even comes up in the transcript is when they're talking about the fucking low cost trucks and how we can build them here in Canada. This was, I don't know. It was clearly a politically calculated move because Pierre probably doesn't want to be seen as being associated with that because I don't know, he's worried about how the media can coalesce around the fact that they supported the Freedom Convoy and how they went against the government and how the conservatives were siding with them. I guess that's just too unpopular for conservatives to embrace. And if it is, then you really shouldn't be in power. You really shouldn't be in a position of power and influence if you can't stand up for the Canadians that were royally fucked over. And I don't mean just the people that were at the convoy or Tamara Litch or all of these trials that we went over in our last episode 2 weeks ago now.
Mm-hmm.
It's the sheer fact of the impact felt by COVID, or rather the restrictions regarding COVID by all Canadians. Like that wasn't, I mean, COVID was mentioned how many times during this episode? 9 times. Yeah, the truckers, and you completely missed that. Back during COVID, Pierre was saying about the government's printing money. As COVID was unfolding, it wasn't just the COVID policies themselves, it was the economic policies. He's, once again, because I've been very, here, quote from him, from Poilievre, because I've been very focused on economics in my parliamentary career, and I was seeing the size and cost of government. It's like, okay, these these people enacted. Oh, it's raining.
Well, you said it mentions COVID 9 times, and 3 of them were right there.
Yeah.
Just talking about the economic side of it, like.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
actually a great part, right? Actually, right there, where he says, what rights did you regain?"
The mandates are all gone now, but like then Joe presses further. He says, "Of course, but those are ridiculous anyways. Yeah, they're ridiculous, but they also impeded businesses. They ruined people's lives, social lives." Um, and then he goes and he starts talking about the Magna Carta, the Great Charter. It's like,
Yeah, this big
bro,
philosophy on freedom and.
he's not, he's not grounding it. He's not really grounding it in anything real. He's not saying that, hey, just so you know, just if you didn't know, Tamara Lich had the longest mischief trial in Canadian history, and
Mm,
actually, the government initially lied about the mask mandates, and then decided to tell the truth when it then became convenient for them. It's like all these different buttons that Pierre could have pushed. He opted out of to, I don't know, push for a more unified messaging. I don't know. It seems like this episode right here, it was just an attempt to remind people that he's not Hitler, that he's not like Andrew Tate level sociopath or what have you, misogynist. Like
mhm.
he's not as extremist as the media is making him out to be. And it's like, well, that's not the point. That's not what your point should be, because the thing is, no matter what you say, like the problem with these leftists and the socialists is that they will use anything at their disposal to call you a tyrant, to call you Hitler, to like it doesn't matter. You're not going to appease these people, and by backing off on these controversial topics, you're not actually doing anybody any service. You're actually doing everyone a disservice, because you're shying away from what actually needs to be discussed. Like the fact that
Mhm.
twice now the Supreme Court has ruled in favor of the people against the government, and how their Emergencies Act was lawfully unjust because impeded the rights of Canadian citizens. Like no mention of that whatsoever during the show. Like no, didn't come up like, hey, by the way, Joe, I don't know if you're aware, but our Supreme Court actually ruled twice and the government decided to do it anyways. Like,
Yeah.
okay, are we not is there just like, does this issue not concern you? Is it not important enough for you? Joe Rogan has literally the biggest audience globally, worldwide. This was literally your one opportunity to do this in a significant way, and you shied away from these things because, I don't know, you had people in your ear telling you that you shouldn't do this, or maybe he believed he shouldn't do this. Like whatever media practice he had going into this was clearly he was clearly well thought out. If there was anybody in the podcast space to talk about unjust treatment during COVID, Joe Rogan is your guy. He's
Yes.
literally your guy. Like he was the fucking anti-vaxxer target for the
This was the
longest
moment to
time.
go crazy. Like, I wouldn't care if Pierre started talking about alien conspiracy theories. Honestly, like I wouldn't care. It's like, give me something, give me some subject matter. You know. But before I go too far into that, it's interesting because you made this point twice already. Um, so what you're basically saying is, at this point, Pierre is censoring himself to a certain degree, or just, abstaining from certain topics because what? He's afraid of mainstream media slandering him? Is that what this is? Because I can guarantee you that the vast majority of people that support Pierre and the Conservative Party already know that mainstream media is full of shit.
I don't
So
think
with
it's,
Yeah, no, go ahead, go ahead. I'd like to get your thought on that because you mentioned that twice now. His like aversion to touching on topics because of like slander and being shown as like, oh, the Nazi. And it's
yeah,
like
I
your
don't,
job isn't to
yeah.
walk around and convince people you're not a Nazi. Your job is to walk around and say, hey, these are the policies I think Canadians believe in and need to be supported and need to change. You know? So like what are your thoughts on that? Is it really fear of mainstream media and slander that's making him basically like choke himself out on these topics?
I don't think it's so much fear. I think it's like he understands the media landscape, and he understands how people are going to use these clips against him. Because the moment that this podcast came out, all the news was talking about, oh my God, Joe Rogan, the anti-vaxxer, the this, the that. They were, instead of attacking Pierre on what he actually said during the show, it was like an attack to Pierre through Joe Rogan, through his reputation. At least that's like a lot of the coverage that I saw. Um,
Mhm.
so I don't think that Pierre necessarily has fear or that he's afraid of this. I think that he made that calculation because at the end of the day, I don't know if he wants ideally to have a majority government or a minority government, but either way, they need a wide base of support. And Canada being what it is right now, I mean, it's the exact same reason why there's all these photos of Pierre meeting with all these various cultural diaspora, whether it's the Indians and he's wearing their fucking turban, or he's meeting with the Jews, or what have you, like just putting on all these costumes, that he's doing the exact same thing that Justin Trudeau did and all the other politicians do. I
Yeah,
think
kiss the
that
baby. Yeah.
exactly. I think that ultimately Pierre is just trying to pander to as many people as possible because he realizes that he can't. I think he believes that he can't win unless he does all these things and tries to get as much support
Mm.
from as wide a base as possible. And so that's why he is just trying to say all the right things and to avoid certain controversial topics. I mean, it's the same reason why any time that the topic of abortion or any of these actual like genuinely conservative ideals comes up, Pierre doesn't weigh in on them. He says, no, the party will always hold these beliefs to be true. And it's like, well, no, abortion actually isn't all that conservative. And gay marriage actually isn't all that conservative either. And all these other things that you're supporting, they're not really all that conservative. So on the
Mm.
economic side, like, okay, great, man. Like you're calling out the carbon tax, you're calling out the housing shortage, the immigration crisis, like that's great. But these things are not all economic. Canada has quite a few cultural issues that make it the place that it is today. And there's a lot of just fundamental truths about Canada, like the 215 missing kids, like the fact that Pierre hasn't been going up and down the news media talking about this, how like they've still haven't excavated anything. The
Mhm.
native band that's in charge of that has been sent $12 million, and I just covered this on my show yesterday, where the person that was responsible for organizing this effort in her tribe, I don't know if she's the chief or whatever the fuck her title is, she likened the search for these 215 missing bodies, she invoked the Holocaust. She's like, people are still to this day studying the
I saw it.
Holocaust, and it's like it's not in any way the same thing as the scale, regardless of whether you think it was 6 million or 500,000 or whatever the fucking meme number is now. Um, that's not at all the scale of what we're talking about here. And on one of the first shows that I did, when I started touching upon the topic of Canada First, I showed proof that that exact site where they have the quote unquote 215 missing kids, it lined up. If you looked at the map of the area, it lined up with where they had the sewage system placed near the school. So for all we know, that's actually just like shit deposits that were placed there as a result of them building their latrines or whatever the hell infrastructure they had there. Like the fact that this hasn't been debunked to this day, the fact that they're still carrying on with this 215 missing kids is such a disgrace. I mean, my God, like I genuinely don't understand how this is not a bigger attack line by the
Something
conservatives.
that garnered international news and slanders this country in the eyes of the world needs to be addressed,
The Pope came for a
especially when
fucking
it's
visit.
untrue.
Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the whole all the hubbub like resulted in the Pope visiting, and he's gone. But guess what? There are still native reserves, indigenous reserves that are living with boil it water advisories. Like, what are we? Like, what are we talking about? 215 missing kids. You guys don't even have access to adequate drinking water. We spent last year alone. We spent more on indigenous affairs than we did our military. Where's all that money going? Where are these millions of dollars going? Like, what's going on? Anyways, I'm saying all that to highlight the fact that the conservatives do have attack lines, but I guess they think that if they do start attacking the liberals on this line, they think that the I don't know, the full weight of the government is going to come down on them, or they're going to have so much opposition, like whatever it is that's keeping them from doing this, whatever belief that they have regarding this, they
Hmm.
need to discard that. They need to completely do
Yes.
away with that, because if you don't actually engage with these issues for real, then all you're doing is you're just providing half measures. It's like Pierre said, "Oh, I'm just happy to see." Like during the Joe Rogan episode, he said multiple times, "I'm just happy to see that the government is adopting my policies." It's like, okay, but they're doing it in a way just to appease you. They're doing it in a way to appease the liberals that are maybe not so fond of the party, and they're like, "Oh, well, see, they're working together with the conservatives. They're adopting some of their policies, but they're actually not doing anything of significance. I'm still paying out the
While they
ass for
walk all over
groceries."
Canadians, yeah, while they walk
Yeah.
all over Canadians and get their majority government. But continue.
Yeah, like I'm still paying out the ass for groceries. You're still paying out the ass for rent. We're both still paying out the ass in our phone bills, even though we live in one of the most developed countries in the world. Like there is
Hmm.
no excuse why your phone bill in Canada in 2026 should cost you $50 to start. Like there is no excuse for that. Like absolutely none. The fact that we have like this ailing infrastructure, we don't have like high speed rail connecting cities. We only have one via like two sets of via rail tracks going through the country through all the towns, to the point where if you take a not a commercial, but if you take a what's it called? Oh my god, what's the word? Um if you take the passenger train, right?
Hmm.
And you are riding on the exact same line that the commerce trains have to ride on. Those that are actually transporting the raw materials and goods in between countries, or sorry, rather cities and provinces.
Yep.
They pull you over. You have to stop. You have to let them go ahead. So your trip could be delayed by a half hour, maybe even upwards of an hour sometimes, depending on how many delays you have. And that's literally just because we didn't bother to lay down a second set of tracks. We have one fucking company that runs the entire train tracks across Canada. Like what like what are we talking about here?
Well, I remember
Like
several
why
years ago
why?
when they uprooted all of these train tracks. I don't know what it is, because now when you drive through any city, at least any city I drive through, anywhere at this point in Canada, I don't know if these train tracks are active or not when coming to approach them. Because like in my hometown, I remember we had, I think, two sets of train tracks that ran through the city, and then they completely uprooted that, whether it was for maintenance purposes or so on. I can't remember. This was something like 15 years ago they did this. Um, I don't know if it was maintenance issues or cost issues or what, but they completely like uprooted our train infrastructure. And I can't fathom why, especially being such a large landmass of a nation. It seems like a worthwhile investment.
Yeah,
But
you
yeah,
would think that we would have like more trains and more routes and more rail lines and just like all these different projects. Like it's the conservatives are offering this watered down vision for Canada. That Pierre's appearance on Joe Rogan, it was once again a reminder that they're not actually serious about this. They're not going to do the work that needs to be done. They're not going to deport millions of people. Like Joe Rogan put the question to him at one point. He's like, "Well, are you guys like how do you see yourself dealing with the immigration problem? How are you going to go about the deportations? Like, do you think you guys are going to need something like ICE?" And Pierre Poilievre plainly said, "No, no, we would not need anything to that scale, anything like that, because he knows exactly how unpopular it is and how it's going to cause him to lose the next election or to lose political influence the moment that the news media and the people on the ground start getting their phones out and showing protesters getting shoved to the ground." Which look, however people agree or disagree on this, we have millions of people that shouldn't be here. We have 5 million visas that are about to expire this coming year. And
5 million. Did I catch that right?
yes, what like I'll fact check it right now. What?
5 million visas are going to expire,
Yeah. What is
and we
the okay?
don't need an ICE event. And I'm not
Temporary
saying we.
visas.
I'm not saying we need to go like balls to the wall on this, and the whole dialogue of, oh, they're tearing away families and blah 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 blah. But here's the thing: if we're being perfectly honest, we need the villain arc in Canada. You know, it's I don't know how else you solve issues that have been festering for over a decade, or just about a decade.
Yeah, combined over 2025, 2026, the total reach is about 4 million.
Jesus Christ. So
So
that, yeah, okay. So what do we do with these people? What do we do? And
well,
Poilievre's
yeah,
answer was be what was it? Um,
legally.
be just and lawful, I think is
Yeah,
what he said.
yeah,
What
yeah, be
that's
just
okay,
and
so
lawful.
pretty words, but what the fuck does that mean? Because I'm just and lawful. I pay my taxes and I pay through the nose for food and rent and all this, and I'm contributing to the system. I'm lawful. I'm legal. I'm a citizen.
Yeah, I
What the
pulled it
hell
up
does
right
me
here.
being just and lawful do for getting rid of an illegal that decides to stay on an expired visa?
Yeah, right here, about 57 minutes into the show, Pierre says when their work permit and their visitor visa runs out, then we have to encourage them to head back lawfully. Right. And then Joe Rogan says, right, but you don't want to do it ICE style. And Pierre says, no, I don't think we need to do that. I think we have to be orderly and lawful
Orderly, yeah.
about it. Um, which like I'm not going to dissect that because that's just going to put me down a rabbit hole. But look, at the end of the day, if you don't have the grit and the wherewithal to understand that Canada is not only facing a population collapse, just like most countries are going through right now, except India, who's having a population boom. Um, if you don't understand the consequences of that going into the next few generations and the urgency to which we need to respond with this, then you don't have the wherewithal to be the leader of the country. You just don't. And if you think that uh, the discomfort of being labeled by the media or the political forces that are opposing you as a tyrant for wanting to deport these people is going to be enough to discourage you, then you don't deserve to be sitting in public office. It's plain and simple. We have 5 million visas total that are set to expire this year that are going to be expired. Like these people are not only are they not going to leave willingly, there have already been instances of labor unions. I think one of the biggest labor unions in Ontario came out during, I think it was last summer or the summer before that, and they stood
Oh, yeah.
alongside. They stood
Mm-hmm.
alongside the illegals that were saying, not the illegals, sorry, the Indians who had their worker visas expire, and they had all these protests, whether it was in Brampton or PEI or in Halifax or in any of these other places. It was happening across the country where they were saying good enough to work, good enough to stay, and the labor unions were supporting them with that. And it's like, well, we can't have that. We can't have the labor unions arguing for that because at the end of the day, these people are a fucking burden. Okay? If if it means that Canada's economy has to shrink and dozens of Tim Hortons and Starbucks and A&Ws and your Amazon package might take an extra day to arrive, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with having economic shrinkage if that means that millions of Indians don't come to Canada. I'm willing to accept that because it seems to me the alternative that they're proposing to us is saying, well, look, we're gonna have economic ruin if these people aren't here, but we still have economic ruin like since they're here. So like I would
Yeah.
prefer it if they weren't here. I would much rather deal with the consequences of them not being here and me being encouraged by my government to start a family, to buy a starter home, to start saving up and buying assets and so on and so forth. If it means I have to pick up a second job, fine, so be it. But so long as I have a path towards these various stages of life. And
Mm.
I'll just say this before we get on to the next topic. This is a part of the rant that I had yesterday. The most critical thing, or one of the most critical things right now, that I don't know why it doesn't get enough airtime um, by anyone of any level of influence in our current political establishment. When you sacrifice the youth for the sake of the bottom line of these companies and the CEOs, or more political influence for the people that are letting these millions of people in, like you're just creating a ticking time bomb that when it goes off, you're going to have a lot of ruin and destruction in its wake. Like this level of population growth is not sustainable. You can't lock this amount of youth out of the job market and expect nothing to happen. Like just look at history and what happens when enough young people are locked out of the process of just being able to start their life. Not asking
Mm.
for the world. They're not asking to be able to go to Europe for fucking 6 weeks at a time. They're just asking for the bare minimums of having a job through which they can enter the labor market, start building a resume, and eventually get out of washing dishes and get into working in an office or what have you. Right? It's just that we're not asking for a lot. We're asking for just basic steps that our parents and grandparents went through. Um,
Mhm.
when you do that and you continue to do that and you continue to pressure the youth, not only are you robbing them of their vitality, like in a time in their life when they don't have a family to support, they don't have any assets to manage, they don't have an apartment to live in because chances are they're living with their parents. Like they don't have to deal with groceries or any of these other responsibilities that as you get older you have to essentially accept.
Mhm.
That is the best time for them to take risks. That is the best time for them to have a moonshot, for them to go out into the world and not only make something of themselves, but to ultimately provide some layer of benefit to the rest of society, whether it's an invention or a startup or a business or what have you. Like whatever
Yeah.
risk it is, in whatever realm it exists, when you are young, that is the best time to do it. And so when you rob entire generations of this, right? When you make it so that they now have to start behind the starting line compared to immigrants that come here and get all these benefits that live on the public tax dollar. When you have this, like what happens in 10 years when these people grow up? Like when they're actually in their 30s and their 40s. What happens when they now have no choice but to start like I need I need some kind of a fucking space. I can't live with fucking roommates into my 40s. I can't be doing that as a grown man or woman. I need to be able to start a family because I don't want to end up fucking alone, right?
Mhm.
Like I when what happens to those people when they are dispossessed? When they don't have any meaning, when they don't have anything to put their vitality and their energy behind. Well, that's when they start paying attention to the woke leftists. That's when they start feeling like I got fucked over because such and such wanted to make money. So
Victimized. Yeah.
now I'm going to get involved in the street or politically or online or what have you. Oh, it doesn't matter. Okay, fine. I don't know. I'll start a gambling stream. I'll start an
Well, if it doesn't
OnlyFans.
matter, then
I'll
fuck
start
capitalism. I'll
yeah,
support communism or socialism. Like it.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's the exact same reason why Mamdani was elected is because people that were placed in a position that they thought, okay, if I just do as they say, if I just go to university and I get a decent job, and yeah, I'm gonna have to scrap and scrounge for a little bit, but that's fine because eventually I will have a leg up. When they don't even have the chance to get that leg up, what do you think is gonna happen? Like, do you think those people are gonna take that lying down? Do you think that all that energy and all that frustration is just gonna fucking filter out into the air? Like this is the type of shit that builds a crisis. This is the type of shit that leads people to go out into the street and to start rioting. Like I'm not advocating for that. I'm just saying like if we just look at history, this is a natural consequence of youth being dispossessed and dislocated from the process of just being able to start their life, to build a base. If they're disqualified from that process, they're going to take that energy and excuse me, and they're going to put it towards something that is much less productive. It's going to be accelerationist. They're going to want to be able to fucking burn the whole fucking thing down,
They start playing
especially
the
if they
blame game. Yeah.
especially if they don't have religion, especially if they don't have any sense of order, if they don't have any sense of meaning. They're
Hmm.
they're just going to become hedonistic. They're going to dump their time into fucking Twitch, into Pornhub, into OnlyFans, into gambling because that seems to be the only way to pass the time without going crazy. So, like that's I don't know why it's not talked about this third rail idea because it is absolutely of the utmost importance. If the youth are dislocated from the process of being able to start a life and just to be able to build a base from which they can eventually enjoy some semblance of a comfortable life in their future. If they're not able to participate in that, then they're just going to take their energy elsewhere. And the person that comes around to scoop it back up, it's going to be somebody that's worse than Andrew Tate. It's going to be somebody that's worse than Clavicular. It's going to be somebody far worse than Nick Fuentes or any of these other people that are now in the public eye getting all this attention from the dispossessed youth. It's going to be worse. And I don't want the world to go in that direction. I really don't.
I don't want things to be worse. Is that so much to ask for? Yeah.
Like that's fundamentally it. Yeah.
No, 100%. And you're nailing the nail on the head there. But that's one thing that one positive point for Pierre, actually, when talking about immigration and Diary of a CEO. I'm just going to skip over really quick because he just mentioned something. He did say, in fact, like, I think Steven asked him, like, oh, if, you have this lawful removal of illegals, and let's not, I don't want to butt around that either. If you stay in this country past your visa, you're an illegal. Now, we give you time to reapply for work visas and so on and so forth, right? I understand having a grace period for stuff like that. Sure. But once your visa expires, as far as I'm concerned, you're legal. But he says, okay, so say we get these people who are on expired visas to leave lawfully. Can the Canadian economy and the working force be able to handle that, right? Be able to substitute for the loss in the workforce? And Pierre says, absolutely. We have like a stupid amount of unemployment right now. I think unemployment is at like
14%. For youth unemployment, it's 14%.
14% on youth? Yeah, I think it's I think it's something like 7.3% overall. I can't remember if I saw that number. Don't quote me on that. Yeah, but we have a stupid amount of unemployment. So it's like, of course we can get people in these jobs. That's not an issue. And then just going back really quick to what he said about ICE and like that whole the words he used, encouraging people to leave lawfully. Okay, well then explain that sentence to me, Pierre. If you're not going with the carrot and stick method. Because essentially what he basically gave us was a nothing answer. There is no carrot, there is no stick, right? Well, the problem is okay, so there's no stick being ICE, right? Being like a firm policy on immigration where people will show up at a certain point and be like, hey, time to go, right? And you know me, I love my analogies. So here's the thing. You got a horse. You got the carrot and stick, right? Okay, horse, which one are you going to pick? Oh, you're going to pick the carrot because the stick doesn't look too nice, does it? So now take the stick away. Well, we have the famous phrase, you can bring the horse to the water, but you can't make him drink. So now you got a horse with a carrot in front of him, but the horse isn't hungry. He's just going to fuck off. Why should I listen to you? Why should I bother doing what you want me to do? There's no repercussion. Yeah, the stick is important. This is just the laws of nature.
Yeah, we just had those hearings where I forget who it was in Immigration Canada, but they basically admit to the fact that they can only investigate, I think it was like 200 claims a year of any like falsified immigration for anybody that's coming to the country under false pretenses.
That's fucked up.
And if we can only investigate 200, then why are we letting in millions? Why are we allowing millions of people to come over to our country? If we reach that cap of 200 cases, well, guess what? We are closing off immigration through that direct visa route to anyone. That has to be an automatic thing. And then also, what's going on with the Canadian Border Services Agency? As you said, Pierre talking about this, oh, we have to do it legally. It's like, oh, okay, but that was also, once again, he missed the opportunity to say, hey, I got some numbers here. By the way, this is how many Canadian Border Services agents we have currently. This is how many we would need, an estimated amount to process the 5 million visas. Like,
that would have been a great answer.
Anything of substance to say, like, hey, I actually have, and this tweet like got me in some hot water some time ago, but basically I tweeted something to the effect of like, we can actually solve the unemployment crisis. All you have to do is just deputize Canadians to be able to go door to door and arrest illegals and people that are overstaying their visas. So that way we get people out of the country and you get Canadian jobs and they get to go out and fucking hunt these people down. Fucking what's his name? Dog the Bounty Hunter style, right? Like just deputize enough Canadians and we can fix this. Just, you know, make the jobs temporary until we get the immigration level down so they know that this isn't forever. You know, if you work plumbing, electrician, what have you, just, you know, take some time away from your job and focus on this because it's a little bit more important. And then once you finish that stint, you know, with the government, you go back to your regular job and easy peasy, no problem. And the economy eventually picks it up. Like this even with that, like this Make-A-Wish scenario that I've come up with, even if we don't resort to anything like that, we need to hire Canada Border Services agents. There was recently a scandal a couple months back where it was essentially found that there were all these, like, I think hundreds of issues of misconduct to the point where these agents were actually helping these people with their visa process. They were like wittingly and knowingly helping them process their visas, even though they were either coming under false pretenses or there was cases of bribery and what have you. It's like, no, we need to cleanse the Canada Border Services Agency and the Immigration and the Deportation boards. We need to completely like gut them and start from scratch if we need to. Those people need more funding. They need better training. If that means that ICE has to come up here to train them in their tactics, yes, 100%. Because what did we see happen in fucking Minnesota? Right? The moment that ICE got on the ground, the left had all these people that were well trained. They knew exactly, like they had somebody on the inside in the government in the DMV giving them the license plates for all the ICE agents. They were stopping cars in neighborhoods. Like, let's not forget what actually happened.
Really organized. Yeah,
like these people became militant. And if we wish to deport people on the scale that we need to in Canada, we need to learn from that. What happened in Minnesota and what's happening in the U.S. is a learning lesson. Like in my perfect world, Pierre would have gone on and said, "You guys didn't go far enough," and I commend President Trump for trying it. But at the end of the day, it's a lesson that we can learn from. And when we have an ICE of our own, going door to door and going to parking lots of Home Depot or what have you, we need to be employing these same tactics and be able to combat the left on this. We need to actively do that because that's the only way to solve the problem. Anything else, we're just gonna hope that they leave of their own volition.
Yeah.
Okay, dude. Okay, dude. What happens when you encounter?
That's why we have illegals. Like,
what happens?
They leave lawfully.
Yeah. What about the fact that many of these people share last names and first names? Fucking Gurpreet, Kapreet, like fucking, like what happens then? What happens then? Or like what about the fact that there was recently a case where they accidentally they lost this guy that they were going to deport on some serious violent crimes. He just fell through the system. They lost track of him and he is God knows where. I mean, like, where is he? Nobody knows. Canada Border Service agents don't know. Nobody knows. I mean, I'll even look it up to get more information.
Yeah, no, definitely the immigration, and this was kind of where, and I'm going to skip ahead a little bit in the podcast here because I want to make sure we touch on this because you and I have a little bit of different views on this topic. As you're looking this up, this is where kind of Pierre was saying on the Joe Rogan podcast. He goes, "I don't want to badmouth, the Canadian Prime Minister on foreign soil." And later on in the Diary of CEO podcast, he actually goes into that a little bit more in explaining how, because of the trade talks going on between Canada and the US, he didn't want to be on foreign soil in the country that we're having these talks with, and putting Canada in any
undermining
in any way at disadvantage, right? And undermining us in any way in this trade deal. So initially, like before even watching the Diary of the CEO podcast, I looked into, I saw that as him just saying, like, I won't badmouth our prime minister on foreign soil. I saw that more as like a moral thing of him saying, like, look, I'm different. I'm not going to be going around badmouthing people. Like, I believe that even though I'm not the prime minister, I'm helping Canada and we should be moving forward and so on and so forth. And that's great and all, but not badmouthing the man is one thing. That doesn't mean you can't touch on his administration and his topics, especially since He wasn't prime minister for 9 years. All right? Trudeau was. And look how he fucked us over. And yet he mentions not like very little on the immigration issues. It's like, no, touch on this stuff. Because then you were saying before, like, oh, he believes and don't worry, we'll come back to the immigration thing. Your point on the immigration thing. He goes back to say damn it, the idea just died. Shit. I lost it. I lost it.
It'll come back to you.
Yeah.
It'll come back to. But yeah, regarding that CBSA case, Kingra, an Indian citizen who entered Canada on a student visa, was allegedly recruited into the Lawrence Bishnoi gang, an Indian-based criminal organization involved in extortion, shootings, and arsons, designated as a terrorist group in Canada. In August 2024, he pleaded guilty to a high-profile attack in Colwood, British Columbia, firing 14 shots at the Vancouver Island home of Punjabi singer AP Dillon and setting fire to vehicles. He received a 6-year prison sentence and issued a handwritten apology. He faces additional charges from another August 2024 incident in Surrey, BC, shooting at an arson of a home, with a court appearance scheduled for April 21st, 2026. His alleged accomplice in that case fled to India. The Canada Border Services Agency initiated deportation proceedings against him on grounds of membership in a criminal organization and serious criminality. Minutes into the proceedings, around April 9th, 10th in 2026, it was halted because neither the IRB, the Immigration Refugee Board, nor the CBSA could locate Kingra or confirm where he was being held. Current status, he remains in federal custody, so they eventually confirmed it. He was not at large or missing. He was simply not produced for the virtual appearance due to an internal transfer communication breakdown between agencies. That can't happen. That can't happen. That can't happen when we have foreign elements of government that is adversarial to us in some ways. And you can't have that when when he decides to shoot up homes of people. We can't. We just can't have that. We genuinely cannot have that be the standard of our deportation proceedings, because if this is just the one case, what are we going to do when it comes to the millions of others? What are we going to do?
Look at the Humboldt driver.
He's still here.
People are already saying, "Oh, let him stay. He paid his fee to society." Fuck him. You killed a bus full of kids. Fuck him. Get him out of here. We don't want him here. And then you wonder why, Canadians are getting more and more prejudice or racist and so on and so on. It's because you have these people here who commit these crimes and you keep them here. So the next time I see somebody that generally represents that culture or whatnot, there's a little thing in the back of my head that goes, motherfucker.
Yeah, it's pattern recognition, and you can't deal with that issue unless you're actually open to face it in a genuine way. Like when all the politicians, because recently it was actually the anniversary of that incident. I think it was a couple of weeks ago, maybe a week ago or so. And all the posts that were on social media, Pierre was saying, "Oh my God, how much of a tragedy it was today. We remember this day," and so on and so forth. And it's like, okay, but you're not actually attacking the thing, like the meat of the case, the reason that this whole thing happened. The guy had 75 infractions on his driver's license already leading up to that incident. The only reason that he's there is because we had mass immigration. The only reason that he's Indian is because we had mass immigration from that country, and he came over pursuing a better life, right? Mm-hmm. That's the problem. It's we imported these people from this part of the globe, and they've now integrated themselves within our economic and just overall infrastructure. It's like, well, this is what happens. You're going to have these crashes. You're going to have these incidents because they don't come from a country that has the same norms and laws regarding truck driving or anything else for that matter. They just don't. They have a completely different culture than us. They obey different gods. They obey different rules. They have a different way of life. You can't just force them to integrate the moment that they touch Canadian soil. It's not magic soil. You don't become a completely different person when you just land in Canada. You're the exact same person. Now you're just in Canada.
See, the problem is I would disagree with that to a certain to a certain degree. Okay, I would say that if you put in the effort, you can come to Canada, you can learn English, you can integrate, you can find work, right? And as far as find work, there's some gray areas with um, licensing and so on, and like being a practiced doctor over in New Delhi and then coming here and not being able to acquire a license. You know that, like, obviously there's things to be talked about there, but I think if you put in the effort, you can come here and change your ways, but you have to be, first of all, open to doing so, and second of all, heavily encouraged to do so. I work with an immigrant right now. He has his permanent residency. He's currently taking a government offered course called like a citizenry course. So basically, they're reading about the stuff that's going to be on the citizenship tests and things they need to know, and you know, how to properly single Canada, stuff like that, while at the same time practicing their English. And the rules, as I understood it, was if you miss a single class, they happen every Saturday over Zoom. If you miss a single class, you fail. And you have to do the whole thing over again. Right? And it's like, okay, 100%. Big thumbs up. I agree. Make them put in the effort. Make them show up to this. And then the problem comes with who your instructors are. And I'm not going to blame the instructor necessarily, but they let them get away with too much. I'm hearing stories about individuals who are attending this class while driving. I'm sorry. I don't know how much information you can retain while being on the roads, but my mind is on the roads, as it probably should be, especially with the immigration driving issues we've already touched upon. So why are you here? As far as I'm concerned, that's a fail. As far as I'm concerned, that's a fail. And then on top of that, you're actually given homework from the weekend before. So the Saturday before, the teacher will say, okay, in the next class, read these like 2 pages, just 2 pages. Just read these 2 pages. And then in the class, we'll talk about them. And as we're talking about them, we're practicing our English, right? You're learning these important words for becoming a Canadian citizen and understanding your rights and so on. But just do the work. Just study 2 pages. Yet the teacher is asking individuals in the class, and they blatantly will just be like, "Oh, sorry, teacher, I didn't study." Then you fail. You fail. That's it. I don't understand how those 2 individuals, at least those 2 individuals in just this one particular class, are still allowed to move forward with this. There are ways for immigrants to come here, integrate, become Canadian. I believe that. I have to believe that. I'm a product of immigration. You're a product of immigration. We don't have a problem with immigration.
I do.
Well, no, but okay, fair enough. But I mean, like, the way that we're going about it is all wrong, and there's no safeguards whatsoever. We just opened the floodgates and said, "Bring them on in." And I even had a problem with, years ago, friend of my grandmother's, who's also an immigrant, doesn't speak a lick English. She hasn't spoken a lick English since she got here. And I find that ridiculous. How do you function? Even before I was heavily politically involved and so on and so forth, it's like, how do you function? Well, the only way you function is you find stores that individuals have opened up from your native region who speak your language, and that's all. That now these are your sticking points. That's not integrating into society. And that's where the problem you were saying before is like, okay, so if I'm allowed to retain my culture and change absolutely none of my practices, then of course when I come over here, I'm going to shit on the beach. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. Anyways, we've been talking about immigration for a long time.
No, I mean, as we should. And
then just really quick, I actually remember the point I was going to make before I lost it there, is on Poilievre, kind of going back to him now. you were mentioning his perspectives on, getting as many voters as possible and, pandering to the other side in order to gain that leverage over the liberals in the next election. But then the same thing you outlined before is that you're not going to vote for the fucker if this is the platform he's sitting on. So he's actually losing support, as far as I'm seeing, because anybody who's actually paying attention to this, who actually watched these podcasts and has two brain cells to rub in his head, can look at this and say, there's nothing here to be backed. What happened to the image of the guy I saw that was, oh yeah, I'm going to stick up for you and so on and so forth. He even goes on in the Rogan podcast at the very beginning, talking about his early political involvement and talking about Western alienation and how the government isn't listening to the hardworking citizens. Then what the fuck are you doing? Stand with the people who support you and stand for what they support. Adopt their values and actually talk about them and represent them.
Yeah. No, I mean, in regards to immigration, Pierre's never gonna go through with it, and I noted that in the podcast as well, because his wife is a refugee from Venezuela. He's never going to.
I actually didn't know about that till you told me.
Yeah, he's never going to go as hard as he needs to, because he has too much personal investment in in things the way they are. And I personally I don't believe that no amount of immigration or integration will make you Canadian. No amount of that will make you Canadian. What makes you Canadian is the fact that you've been here and your ancestors have been here, and you've adopted the cultural and religious and otherwise, other norms of what it means to be a Canadian. So yeah, while I have citizenship, at the end of the day, I'm not the same as an old stock Canadian of somebody who's been here for generations. I have to recognize that, and there's no way around that.
No,
Like
but what I would say is I would value an individual like you within the system, right? Because here's the thing: is like, you want to call somebody Canadian, and hold your point on that. You want to call somebody Canadian, you want to say, okay, you have to be born here, of a certain culture. If anything, the majority of your values should have some root in like a Catholic or Christian background, stuff like that. It's like, okay. But at the end of the day, my issue is, can I actually trust you to be in society and function like a human being, not like a goddamn animal? Like, I have no problem meeting an immigrant out in public who speaks English, who has an accent, or blah, 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 whatever else. I'm interested about learning another culture, sure. But if you're going to make my life hell because fucking whatever reason you just decide, hey, I'm going to stab somebody one day, or I'm going to go and have a shit on this beach, or I'm not going to bother with the roaches and the Tim Hortons or whatever other horror stories, or I'm going to just drive on the phone with no proper licensing and kill kids or whoever, like entire families, that I have a problem with. And I think, like, if we're going to talk about immigration, we need to kind of break it down into stages. How about functional individuals stay? How about that? Let's start there. Get rid of all this other fat first. But yeah, no, I do see where you're coming from with that.
Yeah, I mean, for instance, we probably shouldn't be importing people from countries where genital mutilation is allowed as a common practice, or where marital rape is considered legal, or any of these things. It's
Well, China's banning Islam now as a mental illness, so
well, that's what I mean.
mean,
It's like we can't we can't import people on the goodwill and the hope that they eventually convert over to Western values, because that hope comes on the backs and the sacrifices of we the citizens. It comes back on the rest of us to be now dealing with this person who is now a burden, either financially or economically or just socially. They become they become a burden on our way of life, and I would really like to avoid that, and to not have these people here in the first place. And if that means that our economy has to contract and some people have to lose their jobs and CEOs don't get as much of a bonus that year, that's fine with me. I'm
Mhm.
fine with living within my means or just below them for a temporary time period while we get our economy back up and running, if it means that I never have to see another Uber Eats delivery driver ever again. And by that I mean an Indian.
Yeah. No, and we talked about that before the podcast too, and saying like we understand that with these changes that we're asking for, and with the state that Canada is in right now, sacrifices are going to have to be made to make these changes. Right? We get that. Um, and yeah, that's something Polyev didn't really again touch upon in the Diary of the CEO podcast, because he was asked directly, like, okay, if all these immigrants were encouraged to lawfully leave, right? Could the Canadian economy and the workforce be able to supplement that loss? And Pierre says, well, absolutely. Right. And then it's like, okay, but with all these political changes, Stephen asks him, he goes, with all these changes, there's always cost, right? To everything. There's always a yin and a yang, let's say. So he says, with all these changes you want to implement, what's the sacrifices or what's the consequences that'll have to be made? And all he said was, oh, well, politicians will have to give up political power. And that's all he pretty much said. And it's like, so the only consequence to all of your magical changes are felt at the federal and or at the political level? That sounds like bullshit to me. Because real changes have to be made. And like you just outlined, if these people have to go and say, see, when you said if I never have to see an Uber driver again, and then you specified like specifically like Indian people or foreigners working that job, I wouldn't care if Uber Eats went under in this country.
I really
I
wouldn't
wouldn't
either.
care. I wouldn't care if we got rid of all of these individuals and Uber Eats found out, oh shit, we don't have enough drivers to actually sustain this anymore. And say the Canadian people found no real value in that work because let's be honest, it's pretty shit work for pretty shit pay. I wouldn't care if Uber Eats was gone. If that was a sacrifice we had to make.
Yeah,
But yeah.
I'm perfectly fine with a temporary contraction of the economy if it means I never have to see an immigrant shove a phone in my face asking where this address is on their fucking stupid delivery app.
Mhm.
It's really not a service that I ultimately benefit from, and it's not a service that ultimately benefits the rest of the nation. Give those jobs to students, give those jobs to literally anybody else to do, and they will pick up the slack. Like these,
Mhm.
it's not as if right now, like as we're in the midst of the AI race, that we are seeing all these genius AI coders coming in from India. And my God, if we don't take them, then China will, and China will have the advantage. That's not what we're talking about here. It's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is these remedial jobs that teenagers can fucking do, that seniors can do if they need an additional amount on top of their pensions. Like these jobs, they're not irreplaceable or somehow uniquely deserving of, or rather requiring of some certification or levels of years and years of schooling. That's not the case. That really is not the case. And if that even was the case, why aren't we training for that in Canada in the first place? Why do we have to rely on a foreign power to do that? Because if we've seen anything, when that foreign power shuts off that spigot, well, we're kind of at a loss. Like, is this not a lesson that we learned during COVID, that we have to be more self-sustaining? That like the vision and the idea of Canada first, it extends beyond nationalism. It goes to the root of what the country actually has to do to get back on track. Because if we don't do these things, right, as I said before, if we just keep sacrificing our youth and we keep locking them out of the job market, the housing market, what have you, the consequences of that are going to be much worse down the line. Like, people think racism is bad now. Just wait. Okay, just wait until the youth unemployment rate reaches 20% or maybe even 25%. What happens when that disaffected youth, like what happens when they now start to feel that they were, oh, I feel kind of disadvantaged because now I actually see immigrants everywhere on a daily basis, and that's a job that I could have had, and that's a job that I could have had. And so what is their solution going to be? Fucking UBI? What's UBI going to do? Is that's going to give them a sense of meaning? That's going to give them a sense of purpose, a sense of being. It's just going to allow them to lay around in their studio apartments, fucking watch Netflix all day, bed rot with TikTok reels. And where does that even leave us? What do we get out of that? Where is the benefit from it? I'm really failing to see it. And just once again, this is
Yeah.
something that we've mentioned multiple times, but Pierre is not offering a convincing vision for the future of Canada. He's just saying the bare minimum, which is that the government has to get out of the way of the people, that people need to be left alone to their own devices. And that's great and all, that he's like fundamentally approaching the leftists and the socialists with a very, very, very basic idea, right?
Hmm.
That they have this flawed worldview saying that, oh, the people can't look out for themselves, they don't know what's good for them, they don't understand that. But somehow the government is full of these uniquely genius, high IQ people that are somehow the best at fucking everything, and they can look out for our interests. So hold on. So the rest of us are totally inept and unable to look after ourselves, but the government selects for the most qualified people. It's like that's not how that. It's not how that works. You
That's
guys are
actually a great
just
point. I love that point. Yeah,
well,
continue.
they're just as inept. You have just
Yeah.
the same amount of retards like in that population as we do in our day-to-day lives. It's the exact same thing. Chances are you have a few that actually know what they're doing and navigating the halls of power, and the rest of them are just trying to latch onto their coattails and trying to just fucking live there and subsist and just hopefully, make it through enough years until they get their pension. It's the exact same thing in just about every fucking workplace. You have the high achievers and then you have everyone else. Like it's literally the exact same thing. So yeah, it's great. Okay, Pierre is making the very basic argument that socialism doesn't work, that free market enterprise should be the focus for Canada and how we're going to revitalize the nation. Okay, that's the
Sure.
base.
Yeah.
That is you're reaching, just like, this is not some new novel idea. This is just very, very, very basic. What are you
Yeah.
gonna do beyond that? What are you
That's
gonna
that's
do?
that's the table. When do I get to eat? Like,
Like, what are you gonna do to fix the fact that, like, how many statues have we seen toppled? How many schools have been renamed? How many times has our history been dragged through the mud because apparently Canada is uniquely evil, even though we didn't even have fucking slaves? Like, how are we going to fix that amount of damage? That doesn't just go away. An entire generation is now currently being brought up with fucking land acknowledgements every single day. Every single day, there is a land acknowledgement being done somewhere in Canada, and people are going through this conditioning. And more of them are waking up to this, that this is bullshit, and this is actually, in fact, very retarded. But they're still very ignorant to it. They're not aware of the scope of it. A lot of people, the way that they look at these issues, at least I've encountered this in my personal life, is they're like, oh, what's the big idea? What's the problem? Right? What's the issue with doing a land acknowledgement? What's the issue with flying a pride flag on school grounds? What's the problem with asking anyone that's 16 or younger to provide a photo for digital ID so that they can confirm they are or they aren't of age to access social media? The problem
Mhm.
is that these things have fucking consequences. Consequences down the road that you might not be able to understand right now because you're just so focused on the thing that's in front of you.
Yeah.
Do you really think that teaching entire generations that, like, we're still waiting for the consequences of that to hit the fan? In the next couple of years, like, we're going to have the second wave of wokeism hit, and whether or not those people actually bought in and drank the Kool-Aid, we'll find out fast. But if they did drink the Kool-Aid, then, like, that's going to be a fucking problem, right? In BC, still to this day, did Pierre even cover land rights at all? Did he cover
No.
anything about the Indigenous? The Indigenous doesn't even pop up in this podcast. Indigenous did it pop up in the?
He did talk about them when it came to pipelines and so on, and like how development of pipelines brings their communities out of poverty and completely decimates the unemployment rate in these communities. But I think that's about it.
Right, okay, great. But, like, he's avoiding the fact that right now, before the courts, we are now seeing a negotiation between the indigenous tribes and the government and the people. and to what extent the people actually own the land that they purchased. That's a big fucking problem. We've
It's a
already
big
had in BC alone, we've already had giant condo builders. Which, look, I'm not saying that the condos should be built. I don't know about that land specifically. I don't live there, but I'm just
but
saying
with the
that
housing crisis, it seems like a
well, look, regardless of that, there was projects that have already been pulled because the investors behind the project that wanted to build the condos on that land, they're not certain that they're going to get a return on their investment. Why would I build a condo that's going to cost me billions of dollars if all that ends up happening is the natives come in and they say, "Oh, this is actually our land now"? Why would anybody bother investing in that region of Canada to build anything of substance, anything? If
yeah, yeah.
the indigenous can just go to the courts and say, look, this is what happened in BC, so we're using that as precedent to cover the rest of Canada or whichever region. It's like, why would anybody bother investing, and even forget like foreign investments? Why would anybody in Canada bother investing in any like local projects to build anything? If now the indigenous, I mean, this is still before the courts, so we're yet to see the actual verdict and what this actually means for the rest of Canada. And that fact alone is insane. The fact that the prime minister hasn't come out and said, okay, we need to shut this shit down. We can't live in a country where land rights are now all of a sudden up in the air, and
Yeah.
we're going back to treaties written on fucking parchment paper and in quills and feathers. Like, no. What are we doing? Like, what are
No,
we
because
actually doing here?
you're gonna see a resurgence of the old west. Like I remember, growing up kind of like in rural Ontario, my old man would always be like, "Look, I worked hard for my money, and with that money, I bought this property. And if somebody wants to come on my property and tell me what to do and so on and so forth, I'm gonna go get a shotgun." Because that's just, again, the natural response. This is my land. This is my home.
Well, assuming those people
And
in
now all of a
BC
sudden
haven't.
your land means nothing because, like you said, some old map shows that this land once belonged to such and such a tribe, and now they can just walk in and say, "Oh, this is our land." But you're right about the whole investment thing. Absolutely. I actually never thought about it that way. Because all Poilievre talks about is the bureaucracy behind it, right? All the red tape and saying, it takes us so long to get permits and so on and so forth. But yeah, he didn't touch on that risk whatsoever.
He's talked about this in speeches, and he has like touched upon this. My point
Oh, yeah,
was
okay.
like more so to say like the podcast would have been a great idea to mention that, because like that is a primary concern. Like, if you are trying to drum up more investment into Canada, whether it's local or foreign, whatever your angle is, you can't have a country that has land rights up for fucking grabs for anyone that goes to ancestry.com and finds out that they're fucking whatever percentage more indigenous, and the land that they live in, the Kichiwabazibi fucking tribe, is now partially theirs. They own all of Victoria or what have you. Like, we can't have a country, right? You can't have a nation that lives upon agreed ideals if people don't agree on the basic fundamental of private property. If we don't have
Yes.
that, then we don't really have much of anything when it comes to commerce, at least. Right? Like, why? Like, once again, why would anyone invest any amount of money in any nation building project if this is what's going to happen? And the fact that Carney hasn't said anything about this of like any substance or any significance, or put any pressure on the premier to fucking deal with this, like this needs to be shut the fuck down. This needs to be shut down. Those indigenous tribes cannot just say that they now have land rights to the entire region of fucking Victoria. Like, you don't just get to retroactively do that because of something that was written in parchment long ago. And I honestly, like, on a personal note, I detest the resentment that the indigenous have against the Canadians. With all due fucking respect, they have had more than ample time to integrate with the rest of Canada. They have had more than ample time through the millions of dollars that we send to their bands to deal with their fucking drinking water advisories, their absolutely dog shit living conditions. I mean, these people are living in fucking, it might as well be a mud hut. Like the sheer squalor that these people live in some of these areas, it's actually insane. It looks like a third world for anyone that's actually seen the footage or had the displeasure of being in one of these places. Like, is it really any surprise that they have such a high crime rate, that they have such a low literacy rate, that we're not exactly seeing a lot of leaders come from those communities and represent Canada on the world stage or even on the national stage? Is it any surprise that the stereotype of the Indigenous is a drunkard on the street? It's like, yeah, these people are living in absolutely horrid conditions, and what, like, we're to blame for that? How many years have they had to get their act together? How many years? How many hundreds of millions of dollars have we sent their way? Can we get like some kind of accountability here? The most recent example, I forget if it was in Regina or where it was. It was an incident where a chief was standing before the media and saying they were found to misused, I think, like $20 million or something absurd like that, and the government was asking for that money back, and they're like, we're not giving it back. We didn't misappropriate the funds. And so when they were pressed on it, they just said, no, you have to trust us. Okay,
Nice.
with all due fucking respect, we live in 2026. Okay, you don't get to blame
Trust
any
me,
Can-
bro.
any you don't get to blame Canadian citizens for the conditions of your people if we are sending you millions of dollars for you to improve these conditions for how many decades now, and
Mhm.
they either outright refuse to do so or there's a layer of corruption. Like, look, if we got to send Nick Shirley or some shit to these places to do some investigative reporting, if that's actually what it takes, then by all means, I'm all for it. But like this is ridiculous. I resent the fact that these Indigenous have like feel some sort of type of way about the current government and how they're getting fucked over. They have their own problems in their own local governments to deal with. Don't fucking look to us for a handout. Like this
Mm.
is actually insane. I'm not at all a fan of this narrative that we have to feel bad for these people and the treatment that they went through. Bro, it's been almost a fucking century. Okay, it's been almost a century since they had the chance to start integrating, to start building infrastructure, to build roads, to do any of these things that would uplift them from poverty, and they haven't done so. And I'm not saying that the blame is on the child right now on a reservation that doesn't have access to adequate drinking water, that gets a stipend from the government, and the first thing they spend it on booze. Like, look, I get it. People are a product of their environment and of their circumstances to an extent. I get that. But placing the blame at the feet of the government, that it's all because they were fucked over however many years ago, get a fucking grip, man. Like, honestly, get a fucking grip. Join us. Just move into the
Mhm.
city. Like,
Mhm.
I'm sorry, but your language, it's not going to carry you into the next century. It's just not. English is the law of the land, and I mean that globally.
Just shared language though. That's the thing, is like you guys are trying to keep dead languages alive, and it's like that's great and all, but that's not the priority. Okay? You need
That's
to
not
have
going to get you ahead.
clean drinking water before you can start worrying about retaining your culture to a certain degree. And I like that's where you went, is like, because that's the biggest argument I've heard. It's funny though, it came to mind. It almost make you almost make it sound like these reservations are like Canada's version of the projects, but
They
then they're
are.
also like severely isolated just over, geographical distance. And that's the biggest thing, is like these communities, they're not sustainable. Like some of them, like we said, don't have roads because either the roads are frozen for 4 to 6 months out of the year, and the rest of the time we have to fly everything in, or it's just complete and utter swampland where we actually can't really build. Um, and yeah, that's the thing, is you guys need to come down south. I'm sorry, but if you're gonna choose to live up there, that's your choice. But you need to be able to sustain yourself. And if you can't do that, then you need to move like anybody else. Like if I move to Los Angeles right now, or New York, right, and I tried to make a living and I realized I can't afford rent, that doesn't mean I should be looking around being like, oh, how come the government can't subsidize me for all this? It's like, no, I think it's time to move because I can't afford life here.
Well, it just looks like a rundown town. Like, look at this one reservation. It's like, yeah, like this is what they look like. Lawns aren't cared for. The buildings are dilapidated. The schools don't have any resources. They're very basic buildings. They're not building any, like, there's no skyscrapers. There's no
Mhm.
building that's higher than 2 floors. There's nothing. There's these people live in these conditions and they accept their way of life, and then some of them will wag their finger at the government and say it's all their fault. It's like, dude, for fuck's sake, like,
At
make a
what point do you
decision
take
at some point.
agency for for your own
Like
destiny, for your people's culture?
you want to have your own land and have all your cultural practices and all that. It's like, okay, great, but then don't complain to the government that you don't have access to adequate drinking water. What happens to the millions that we send you? In just last year alone, we spent more money on them than we did our military.
Yeah.
Okay, just last year alone. And that's 1 year in the blip of decades and decades and decades and decades that we've sent them money. What is
Mhm.
happening with that money? Do we have to investigate the chiefs? Is there some sort of accountability system that we have to have? I mean, why is the government not keeping track of this? I really don't understand. Right? Like, I'm genuinely confused. Like,
Well,
and
because
the
we're on the program of, oh well, you guys did all this terrible stuff to us, so to uh to atone for that, just give us some money and we'll be quiet. And it's like, okay, well, here's the money. It's like, well, no, where's the money going? How's it being used? This is still government money. This is taxed from the Canadian people. Where the fuck is this money going?
that's a familiar sight.
Hello.
Weed container. Just out in the grass. They care for their land so much. Like, look, I know this is just cherry picking examples, and I'm not trying to paint every
Yeah,
single
no.
indigenous person with the same
Mhm.
brush. They're not all the same. I get that. They're not a monolith. But to Pierre's point, right? This also didn't come up in conversation, and I didn't think of it until now. But, like, yeah, like the issue of the indigenous. Like, what do we do about them? Right? Like, well, like, what do we actually do? Because I don't want to live in a country where nobody, like, or rather, a sizable population of people doesn't have access to drinking water or safe streets or basic infrastructure like a school or what have you. I really would much rather prefer to live in a place where our tax dollars go towards supporting these causes, right?
Mhm.
Because it will eventually uplift everyone. A rising tide lifts all ships. So if we are all in agreement on that, why is the Conservative Party not coming out and saying we actually want to approach reconciliation effectively? Like, this was Pierre's chance to say, hey, just FYI, Indigenous are actually having a rough go at it. Part of it is their own fault because they just mismanage their finances, whether it's a layer of corruption or glad handling or what have you,
Mhm.
right? Like, just any point that would actually address this issue, because once again, anytime that the indigenous are mentioned in the news, it's because of something that's going wrong. It's never because of something that went right. It's never because of some success in their community. It's always because of, like, just some fucking critical wrong. There's a flood on the reserve. There's loss of some infrastructure in a fire. Their food costs are skyrocketing. Like, okay, we are subsidizing an entire population to live on our tax dollars, and they don't seem to be actively producing or contributing to society. It doesn't feel like their impact is all that great. Oh wow, on their reserves they get to sell tax-free cigarettes and alcohol and weed. Cool. That's great.
Cool.
Can we
Drugs.
can we get something beyond that that, like, actually has some substance and some staying power? Can we get something that causes them to, I don't know, turn that native pride into something useful beyond that? Like, I don't know. It seems weird. Like, the fact that, like, Justin Trudeau went on this whole campaign of reconciliation, and what did that do? Are they better off than they were 10 years ago? Maybe
No, we just
marginally.
renamed everything.
Yeah. They gave him a holiday. Cool. Reconciliation Day. That's
They
great. Are
gave
they
themselves a
reconciled?
holiday, the bastards, because everybody else still has to work.
Yeah. Like, this was a perfect topic for Pierre to actually say something on. Like, the leader of Canada First, whoever embodies those values, will have a position to take on the Indigenous issue, because it is an issue. We can't have a country where people are living in enclaves. So then what, the indigenous have their election and we have ours? Like, what kind of a fucking system is that? We need to come together and unify. There has to be some sort of collaborative effort here. Like, are we still just gonna stick with the fucking middle school narrative that all these people were hunter gatherers and we have to take pity on them because residential schools happened? Like, what?
Because the bad white man showed up with guns and just started mowing everybody down indiscriminately, and we're the monsters. It's like that's not history.
Well, I've read accounts that like of people that like went through residential schools and like photographs that were taken there, and they were actually glad that it happened because they were allowed to get away from the violence and the poverty of their community, and they were able to live somewhere where they didn't have to interact with that, and they can actually build a better life for themselves. And I'm not saying that was the universal experience for everyone that went through that system. I'm just saying that we haven't been taught the full history. So if we are actually going to reconcile this in a genuine way and solve this issue, Pierre's not the one to do it. Carney's not the one to do it. Whoever is actually going to step up to the challenge and step up to the plate and actually do something for once, like actually effective, that will fundamentally change Canada's nature going forward, they have to have something on that. They have to have it on that issue, on immigration, on the economy, what have you. Like, Pierre is, as I said before, he's ticking boxes. Oh, great. You make it so that we're not getting raped at the pump. Great. I commend him on that. That is not a negative thing, but that is basic, extremely basic. What do we actually build on top of that? Oh, more pipelines. Yeah. Okay. But what about the actual national identity? Are we going to change the national anthem? Are we gonna return it back to what it was? Are we gonna return these schools back to their names? Are we gonna rename Dundas or Sankofa Square to Dundas Square? Are we gonna change the name of Kichizibi, whatever the fuck, to the what was it?
The Sir John A. Macdonald Parkway?
Yeah, like are we gonna have a return of that? Is there gonna be any effort?
I wouldn't expect to hear anything from that from Pierre, because those topics are extremely volatile. And the changes have already been made. So I can understand Poilievre not addressing those issues, at least while he's not in government. But even then, I honestly wouldn't expect him to say anything regardless. No, those are little landmines that I feel like need to be avoided, unfortunately. Because I'm with you. I thought the same thing. I thought, okay, so let's talk about the national anthem. Let's talk about it. You know, are you going to change it back? I don't expect that. I don't. I expect that something huge, and I want to say almost inherently violent, would have to happen for us to begin addressing things like that. It would have to get very bad, I think.
I don't think it does. I really don't think it does.
No. You want to know why? Because we have bigger issues. Because the fact that the Sir John A. Macdonald Parkway was named the Kichizibi Minchi Suck My Weenie, whatever the fuck, doesn't affect me right now. The road is still drivable. You know, the parkway still closes down on Sundays for cyclists. It's still a great view of the river. You know, it's like the name right now. As much as I make fun of it and as much as I fucking hate it, renaming everything, I don't think those are battles worth tackling in this moment. At least not as we sit. Should they be touched upon? Absolutely. I'm right there with you. Change everything back. Fuck this. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous to be renaming all this stuff. Put the statues back. You know? The Terry Fox statue out front of Parliament was actually moved. And I can't remember if that was affiliated with what happened with the convoy or not, because, the desecration of the statue. But they moved it. It's like, put it back. Why? It was in a great position. Right in front of Parliament. He's a Canadian hero. There's some culture for you. He's an icon. Put the statue back. Rename the shit. But I don't think those are prevalent enough topics in people's daily lives to be bothered with right now. Because all you're going to do is stir up the shit on the left. Because then all they're going to do is turn around and do exactly what you're saying Pierre is avoiding, is just slander him all over the place and be like, oh, look, he wants to turn the parkway back to this this colonist slave owning douchebag or the young and Dundas there. Oh, they want to completely remove what was it? South African culture? Is that what it was renamed after?
No, it wasn't South African. It was I forget what country it was. I want to say Uganda, but I don't believe it's Ugandan.
Yeah, but sure. But
Ghana.
at the end of the day,
It's
it's like, oh,
Ghana's.
okay, yeah. So like, oh, he doesn't support people from Ghana or whatever ridiculous fucking shit they'll make up.
Yeah.
I don't think the risk is worth the reward right now. That's just my 5 cents on that.
Yeah, give me a sec.
Yeah. Well, and if you don't mind moving on a little bit, I really wanted to touch on the topic of MAID because funny enough, you were thinking like you were saying, oh, what happens with youth unemployment when it gets to 20% or 25% and so on and so forth. And my first instinct was, well, at least if these people feel disenfranchised, they can always go get MAID, which is fucking sick.
Well, they will.
I know, and
They
that's
will.
just
It's
and
going to
that's
expand to mental health soon enough. It's going to expand to mental illness very, very soon.
well, exactly. And that's where, again, the Rogan podcasts or the Diary of the CEO podcast was an opportunity for him to address these issues. And when they were actually talking about MAID on the Joe Rogan podcast, Pierre says, well, people should have the choice, but he's concerned about offering it to mental illness. It's like, okay, people should have the choice. What exactly does that mean? Because he's talking also about Canada being the freest country in the world, and people having the choice doesn't sound very restrictive to me, But whatever, I may be looking a little too deep into that. But then, Rogan says, it's good to have the option for certain individuals. He was talking about a friend of his who had ALS, late stage ALS, and he wanted to go out like still being himself, right? And in those situations, this is where I support the MAID program, right?
No.
If I'm 89, let's see, okay, fair enough. You and I do differ on this topic. Where I see it is if I'm an 89-year-old man and I'm shitting myself in the bed and I'm never going to leave this bed in my own power ever again, I'd rather have the ability to say goodbye and go. But the fact that it's being offered with very little to no restrictions outright, and then we've heard the horror stories of people calling in. What was that? There was this one disabled woman who required a stair lift for her house.
She was a
And
Paralympian. She was a Paralympian and she
MAID.
served in the army. She was a Paralympian and she served in the army.
And she was offered MAID over the phone.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous. And there's another story I saw recently. I put the tweet. I don't know. I didn't take too deep of a dive into this, but essentially there was a Canadian woman who had stage 4 ovarian cancer. And her oncologists never even saw her in person. Apparently it was completely mismanaged all over the place, between like the healthcare system and OHIP and all this other stuff. But they offered her MAID. Nothing else. And then I saw another tweet actually about the same story where evidently this happened quite a while ago, where 23 months later, she's in full remission because she went to the States for treatment.
Well, even though this story, it's harder to track, like if it is actually true, what is the validity of it when it happened. The most recent one that happened was that American radio host. It wasn't Gingrich. It was oh my God, American. I always forget his name. American radio host saves Canadian MAID.
Oh yes, this
Glenn
story.
Beck.
Yes, exactly. So this story
Glenn
mirrors
Beck.
a lot of other stuff we've heard.
Yeah, Glenn Beck famously offered to pay for the treatment for a woman. I believe she either needed it was either kidney or liver. I forget what she needed, but she needed some kind of a transplant, and she wasn't able to get the procedure here in Canada, even though she met with the premier. I think it was Saskatchewan. She had gone to the media. She had done everything in her power. She had tried to raise funds. She had done everything, and still was not enough to actually get bumped into the line and to see a specialist. She had to wait for months and months and months on end, and the pain was so great that the husband, who was her caretaker, was essentially saying like she has no will to live. This is going to be potentially terminal for her, and now she's being offered MAID. And when Glenn Beck stepped in, everyone was like, "Oh my God, why like he's just using her as a political pawn, yada yada yada." It
At the end of
says
the day, it doesn't
everything.
matter. Yeah.
It says everything about our country if an American has to come to our aid. And I'm not saying that callously to say that um, that it's some kind of I don't know. It's not how do I put this? It's symbolic of everything that's wrong in our country when we are so quote unquote elbows up, or we have that messaging sent down to us from upon high, and yet it
Mhm.
takes an American
Yeah.
influencer, somebody who has millions and millions and millions of dollars in assets and a storied career in the political sphere, to get a hold of this story. Like, you're talking about essentially the equivalent of an angel investor, somebody that's able to come on board and say, "I will cover this because I believe in the vision that you have for, whatever it is that you want to do." It's the
Mhm.
closest analogy that I can think of, but that's essentially it. Like the guy was her saving angel, essentially, like her guardian angel, rather, is the
Yeah.
correct term. Um, the fact that that's what it takes for a country that is just north of the single strongest economy on the face of the planet and one of the most technologically advanced nations, the fact that we are not doing so good that we wouldn't need to rely on their help to do this, says everything that you need to know about our country, says everything that you need to know about our inept healthcare system. The fact that this is something that this is what needs to happen. People have to crowdfund to get the attention of hopefully some influencer that takes pity on her. Once again, I'm not being callous. I'm just being realistic. Like, there are millions of these cases across Canada of like, go on GoFundMe, go on Give Send Go. You can look through it yourself. There are plenty of cases where people are like, I am at end of life care, or I desperately need this treatment, and the Canadian government is telling me I have to wait 6 months, I have to wait 8 months. Like, it doesn't matter. These cases are happening everywhere across Canada. This is just the one that we heard of. And
Mhm.
the fact that we live in this system, it's indicative of exactly where we are as a country. So, like, yeah, good. I'm glad that Glenn Beck was able to step in and to help this woman, but he's not going to be able to save everyone, and she is not the last one. That victim of the that shooting in BC, that young girl, she got I forget who it
Mhm.
was, but she also got the attention of some people down south, and they managed to get her the funds to go to some clinic in, I think it's LA or something, to get the treatment that she needs. And it's like, that's great, but why aren't we in a position to actually offer this level of treatment ourselves? Why are we offering MAID as some alternative? Like, this is the great crime. Like, Pierre Poilievre talking about, oh, we need to leave it as an option. Like, dude, you're missing the plot, man. Like, you're completely missing the plot. MAID should not even be legal. It shouldn't even be an option in a country like this. Our healthcare and our end of life care should be so good that people aren't even considering suicide, and it's not.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, it's a completely terrible look for Canada. I mean, it's like if somebody commented on your daughter and said, "Oh, your daughter looks a little skinny. Here's a meal I got for her," and I'm standing right there. It's like, bitch, you don't think I can buy my daughter food? But as Canada, no, I can't supply her with this. So what am I supposed to do now? Just go, okay, thank you. Like, of course, Canada doesn't respond on any of these, but it's absolutely ridiculous for foreign individuals to look at our country and be like, well, the country's not going to do it, so might as well step up and help. And it's hard because it's on a very individual, or it's even worse because it's on a very individual level, right? It's individual to an individual, like you said, the saving angel there. Um, and it's just like, okay, though, then I can have absolutely zero faith in our healthcare system whatsoever. especially when you offered MAID before anything else. Like, Jesus Christ. Okay, congratulations. We'll just kill you off. And then our neighbors to the south go, wait, well, hold on a second. That's a human being. Can't we get them some treatment or something? Hello?
Yeah, the fact that Pierre Poilievre didn't touch on this story, on this one story of Glenn Beck doing that, once again, just a missed opportunity for him to say, yeah, this is exactly indicative of what happened to our healthcare system. This is exactly indicative of where the country is today. Like, he's once again, he's missing the mark, and he's not touching on this topic for one reason or another. I don't know, but I highly doubt that he's not aware of this case. This case got national news attention in both Canada and the US. Like, there's no way he isn't aware of this case. And if he's not aware, then that's even worse. So
Oh,
whether he's doing it,
aware.
whether he's doing it on purpose or not, whatever his reasoning for it is, once again, it's a failure on his part to make him seem like an actual viable candidate to turn things around in Canada. All it seems is like he's just a painkiller. He's going to dull the pain for Canadians and he'll improve the conditions temporarily, but he's not actually going to step in and do the work that needs to be done. He's not actually going to go in with a scalpel and completely cut out entire departments or do like whatever it takes to revamp this country and put us back on not only just decent footing nationally, but on the global stage to be somebody that is actually respected and not just to be stepped on or made fun of or trampled on. Like, our country is a fucking clown country right now. We are a land, once again, and I don't use this terminology lightly, we are a land of the raped. Okay, we just keep getting raped and raped and raped, and somebody, like some of these people that live in Canada, they've gotten used to this notion. They've gotten used to the raping to the point where they think that the prices of chicken are fair.
Hmm.
Sorry, there's some dogs barking outside. They think that this is a just way to live. It's the issue with the boiling frog. They don't understand the actual crisis at hand, and they're caught with their pants down, not realizing what the problem is. And it's not too late to turn things around, but at one point it will be. At one
Yeah.
point it will be an unsustainable position from which we cannot recover, and we will have to deal with that kind of decline. I don't want to see my country go through that. I don't want to see my countrymen and women go through that. I really don't. I don't look forward to seeing people in fucking bread lines going to the food bank once a month because the food banks are now so restricted on their amount of visits they can only allow for people to go once a month. I mean, my God, like Pierre's, the reason that I find his approach to it so not insulting, but like I take offense to it because like the fact that he doesn't
dismissive.
go, the fact that he doesn't go far enough is part of the problem. It's not like you can hope to like create as wide of a tent as possible and to get as much support as possible. Okay, but you're going to miss the mark on the fundamental issues that are affecting this nation and will be affecting us for generations to come. And if you don't have the wherewithal to stand firm and to tell all the people that are against you to fuck off and that you're going to do this anyway, well, then you shouldn't be in a position of power. If you don't have the will, if you don't have the strength to do that, then you don't deserve to be prime minister. You really don't.
Yeah, and I liked your analogy of a painkiller there. Sorry, go ahead. I'll let you finish.
Like he's just gonna appease the masses, make it so that like your economic conditions are slightly better than they are now. Okay, fine. So we'll unlock new markets and we'll develop our pipelines and we'll do this and we'll do that. Okay, great. So we're back to fucking square one where we were 10 plus years ago. Now what? Like, what are you actually going to do beyond that? What kind of vision do you have for Canada? That's what's missing from all these podcast interviews that he's done. It's like you're talking about very basic things, and they seem revolutionary because we're just so fucking raped that we're expecting fucking, I don't know, our expectations are lowered to such an extent that anybody that comes out and says, actually, we just need to take the boot off our neck, and we see it as this like some revolutionary, some like life-saving measure. It's like that's not it. That's not it at all. You're missing the mark completely.
We're all eating dirt, and then somebody comes over and hands us a dog treat, so we think it's like the best thing in the world. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I get that. And I like what you said about, him being a painkiller more than anything. If you don't address the wound, the problem's only going to get worse. And that's exactly what he did with the maid conversation. Because when he was talking with Rogan, he goes, he was pointing out how I think it was a story about a young Canadian who killed himself through maid for seasonal depression, and Pierre's immediate response to that was, "Oh, we need to give people more hope, and we need to promote fitness. Focusing more on the mental health issue on its own rather than how in any way it's affiliated with the MAID system or the failure of the MAID system to actually have any regulations set upon it, or the fact that whatever the program is right now is severely flawed."
yeah,
So yeah, he
I
just goes
highlighted
on to say,
here.
"Oh, we need to give more people hope." It's like that doesn't do anything about MAID. That doesn't stop people who have seasonal depression or whatever other mental illness they're going to invoke later on. That's not going to stop them from killing themselves. As far as I'm concerned, anybody under the age of 80, you better be terminally ill. You better be about to die for you to get made, as far as I'm concerned. Like, again, if you're like over 80 and you've lived your life and you want to say goodbye to your family before you develop severe what's the
Anything.
mental Alzheimer's or something like that, okay, you have that decision. But again, regulations, where do we draw the lines here? If you're 28 and you're experiencing depression and you want to kill yourself, that's not on the tax dollar. I'm not going to help you with that because I don't agree with that, because you should not be dead. We should not be killing young people, bottom line. And Poilievre's response is, we need people to have more hope. Fuck me, dude. That is such a non-answer. This was an opportunity for you to say, hey, we need to heavily regulate this shit. Okay? Even though, I understand that you don't agree with the MAID system as a whole, right? Even if Poilievre addresses MAID and says, okay, this is the system we have. This is why, it should be around, but hell, we need to friggin' lock this shit down, because this stuff cannot be allowed. And the only thing that he really did mention on the topic was how, I don't know, telemedicine or whoever else these people speak to on the phone should not be offering MAID. And again, it's like that also seems like a band-aid solution, because just because people aren't offering you MAID on the phone anymore, all that does is stop all the stories on Twitter of saying, oh, hey, I'm so and so with a disability, and the Canadian government offered me MAID instead of actually helping me. Like, that's all you've done, is you've eliminated the stories rather than address the actual problem. Because the problem is, obviously, is that MAID is available to these people, and that's ridiculous. Again, if you're paraplegic, it's like, we do a lot to accommodate you in this country. Is it so much to ask for you to try to live a life? And this sounds like a crazy conversation to be having, because obviously I don't understand that, but and I'm not paraplegic, but it's, you can live. It's okay to live. I don't know. It's something. It's better than saying, oh, we need to give people more hope and promote fitness. Just again, okay, that's great. Again, like we've been saying before, that's a pretty great foundation, but he doesn't even really address the topic at that point. And that's the most they spoke on about MAID.
Yeah, yeah, no, it was just this little section here, and look, first and foremost, never commit suicide. But two, if people are going to commit suicide and they want to do it, they will find the means to do it. Okay, any fucking idiot knows that if you inhale enough aspirin, it will kill you. Okay, and aspirin is an over-the-counter medicine. Okay, the methods in which people can kill themselves, it's not an unknown. Okay, if somebody really wants to do it, they will find the means to do it. It doesn't even have to be through Google. Like they can find these means to do it. I just don't think that the federal government should be funding that in any way, shape, or form. Like there are organizations that deal with this. Like I think in the UK or maybe it was the Netherlands, there was an at home delivery service where they would deliver you with like some tank of gas. And the way that they got around it is they didn't say it was for suicide. They just said no, we just sell these tanks of gas with the face masks that people can use for whichever purposes, and they would inhale this combination of gas and then they would go in their sleep or what have you.
No, that's diabolical.
But the point is that this is, if you want to make that choice, by all means, like that's every individual choice to make. Once again, I'm not advocating for it. You should never commit suicide. There's plenty of things that you can do to alleviate that pain. I just don't think that the federal government should be in any way forced to give out tax dollars for people to do this, because once again, we're going to have people that abuse the system. We're going to have people that find ways to make this an issue bigger than it actually has to be. Because what ends up happening as a consequence of MAID, now end of life care is not nearly as expensive as it once was, because people can just rely on MAID. Now the homeless can apply for MAID. They don't have to be on the street. So what also happens with organ donation? What happens with organ donation? Do those people get plugged into the MAID program as well? What happens to their organs? What happens to the to the waiting list for people that are waiting on like lung transplants or heart transplants, things that are extremely hard to get?
Mm-hmm.
Like there was a case in Spain recently. I believe it was Spain. This young lady got raped years ago and lived with PTSD since that day, and the government, through their whatever channels, offered her assisted suicide because all the therapy that she went through eventually put her into that category where she could apply to it. And so the government, like, she partially went through this trauma because they gave the rapist a lenient sentence, so he got out after committing this awful act. This lady had to live with the fact that he's out, and live with the fact that she had gone through that experience and had that PTSD for the remainder of her life. And then after that, the state took her organs and put it on the donation list. So they failed her at every step of the way because the rapist didn't get what they deserved.
Mm-hmm.
The woman didn't get the support that she needed, and every step of the way, this was a process that was at some point or another touched on by the government and the available services. Is this also something that's going to happen in Canada? Are we also going to see cases where people go through something very traumatic in their youth, the government fails them, all the therapy that they go to, it doesn't work for them, so then the only alternative that they're given is suicide? Like
No.
this is the problem, right? Like we cannot have a federally funded program like this expanded to anything beyond terminal illness, right? If we're going to have this program, which I disagree with, but if we're going to have this program for people only at the end of life stage, or if you're born with some terminal disease and you just want to get it over with and have this opportunity, I can see the argument being made there. I disagree with it, but I can see the argument being made there. Anything beyond that, you're now extending it and hoping that on the good graces of all the people in the system that nobody's getting taken advantage of, that no homeless are applying to this. Like, my God, man, this is insane. When I did my breakdown on MAID, the amount of cases that I saw were people like just genuinely, all they needed was an extra $1,000 a month. That's all they needed to get out of their shitty apartments, to find some meaning in life, to literally just lift themselves out of whatever squalor they're living in. They just needed an extra $1,000 a month. That's all it would have cost to keep them alive. And instead they were offered MAID. Like, great. So we're just accepting this now as a way of life in Canada. I really don't understand how this isn't a bigger issue, or why Pierre is shying away from actually talking about it. I don't even think, did he even cover it in the other show? I don't even think he did.
I don't think he did.
No, MAID doesn't come up once. Not once.
No.
Neither does the topic of suicide. Like, Okay, man, great. Like you're handed a platform of a lifetime. Who knows the next time he's even going to have a chance to go on these shows again, right? Who
Hmm.
knows how long it's going to be before he decides to do one of these tours, or any political figure in Canada for that matter. And also, notice this: it wasn't a Canadian podcast. We don't have that kind of clout. We don't have that kind of reach. He had to
Yeah.
go over to the South.
Hmm.
Okay, he had to go over to the South, and he had to go overseas for this type of audience. He didn't have it here. And Pierre's been on podcasts here, but they don't get nearly the same kind of clicks or views or notoriety as those other shows do. What does that say
Yeah.
about our media industry? Like all every fucking step of the way throughout this tour has been like it's just showing exactly why we are so raped, why we're so fucked, and Pierre
Well,
is
because
just
we.
he's not able to
Yes.
live up to the task at hand. He's not going to be able to be strong enough to do what needs to be done. He's going to give us half measures. He's going to placate people, and he's going to offer the painkiller to numb the pain, but he's not actually going to deal with the issue at hand.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And just to touch on, him having to go across borders to get this audience. Well, it's because we kind of fucking undermined the only person that had any real social media power from Canada at that level, who would, I think, and he's getting older now, but I think it would have been Peterson. And I feel like Peterson would have at least grilled him to the wall on a lot of these topics, and getting a deeper understanding of of Pierre's philosophy behind these things. But no, we shunted him out of the country. We took his license. And
Well, he did appear on his show. He has appeared on his show, I think, at least once,
yes,
and
yes.
I don't know what Pearson's up to
But I mean,
now,
like,
but
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
he's fully bought into this war with Israel. So I don't know if Pierre even wants to get involved
Yeah,
in
yeah.
in assigning his reputation there. But yeah, nonetheless, like anybody that is successful, more to your point, anybody that sees any level of success in Canada, the first thing they do is they leave.
Yep.
Literally, the first thing they do is they leave for greener pastures. Fucking what's his face? The elbows up. Fucking Mike Myers.
Mike Myers. Yeah.
Mike Myers. Where does he live? He lives in L.A. Is that like any surprise? Is there any real is there really any surprise like why he lives there? What about Ryan Reynolds? What about Ryan Gosling? What about well, yeah, once again Jordan Peterson too. Like all these people, anybody that reaches any level of success, they leave Canada. Like is there any reason why they shouldn't? I don't blame them. If I had the power and influence in their positions, I probably would have made the exact same calculation.
Yeah.
As much as I'd love to think otherwise, it's like, well, I don't know. I don't like getting fucked on food. I don't like getting fucked on rent. I don't like getting fucked on any of these things.
I don't like getting fucked. So, like, just in
Yeah.
general. Like,
I don't like
can
getting
we?
raped. I don't like getting raped. I really don't. I don't enjoy
Well,
it. I don't think anybody
and
does.
and that's the funny thing is we're talking about Maine and we're talking about giving people hope and their mental health. And you were saying all these people needed was like $1,000 more to just not be stressed about life. And I think that's a big thing is how our economy has completely destroyed our ability to feel alive. I mean, I haven't been to a bar in
I can't remember.
years.
Maybe the
Like
holiday party,
I haven't been out and about. Yeah, sure. That's
and that was
maybe close to the
subsidized.
same.
I didn't have to pay for it. I got drink tickets in my work. Like, great,
Uh,
you know.
yeah. See, this is the thing is that now, like you said, we're the analogy I made earlier is that we're eating dirt and then somebody hands us a dog treat and we fucking gobble it up because that's where we're at. You know? Um, the economy has completely destroyed it's completely destroying our mental health just overall. But again, that doesn't mean that you can just go and commit suicide, right? Or one way or the other, or on the government dollar. Like, absolutely not. And this is what you were touching on, is like there will always be people who will take advantages of a system like this, and I agree with that. I do. I have no real love for human nature, but this is why this shit needs to be heavily fucking regulated. Like you were telling me about the gas canister delivery system. That's fucking bullshit. Because, well, first of all, you're giving me a gas that can kill somebody. Who's to say that I'll use it on myself? First of all, that seems very irresponsible.
Yeah, but I mean,
And
I can buy a
second,
knife at a kitchen store.
sure, but a stabbing, okay, well, fair enough. I guess murder's murder, sure. Still, I think that's absolutely ridiculous.
Well, that's a way around it. I'm not saying that that's the option or that's a
But
solution or that that's what needs to be
we need to
implemented.
get the common. This is where we need to get the common sense, though, and this is something that Pierre has talked about more. Is like getting to grounds on fucking common sense. We got to stop with all this fucking lawyer talk and all this jumbled mumbo jumbo and see it for what it is. Just because you don't call it assisted suicide, delivering canisters and masks to these houses, doesn't mean that's not what it is. How like, can we please
Well,
see the
they
real
have
world with open eyes?
well they have to do that legally. That's the reason that they do that. Because the state doesn't allow for assisted suicide, whichever country it was, which I'm fairly certain it was the UK.
Okay, well, then it's not regulated. Absolutely fucking not. That's you're just murdering people. Absolutely fucking not. I don't
Yeah.
agree with that at all. Right. And I'm not saying, oh, everything needs to be regulated by the government. But in my head and in an ideal world, in my little mental utopia, right, we have competent individuals who are reviewing made cases, real made cases. If I see your fucking age, right, and it doesn't start with a 19 and you have no real like medical issues or criteria that fits in any way, shape, or form, like life-ending shit, then I'm not even considering looking at this. As a matter of fact, I'm sending you somewhere else. I'm getting you help. I'm not giving you MAID. I'm not. That's not on the table. Fuck off. And like you were saying, like you shouldn't. Suicide's never the answer to begin with. But yes, heavily regulated. If there is an argument to be made for MAID, it is terminal illness and extreme end of life conditions. That's it. That's the only way I see it. If I get into a car accident tomorrow and I become quadriplegic and I need organ transplants and this and that and so on and so forth, and I'm conscientious enough to make this decision, which again is another topic which I understand has a lot of gray area in it, which I have no real answer for on that one. To be perfectly honest, like I have no set, like this is how it should be. But that is the only way I should be able to make that decision. Right. Otherwise, yeah, you have to be 85 plus, you know, Alzheimer's is coming, Parkinson's is hitting hard, something. Otherwise, I'm right there with you. I don't agree. I don't agree with what's happening. And but Pierre says, "Oh, promote fitness." That's fantastic. Thanks,
Yeah,
buddy.
I mean, look, he's once again, as we've said multiple times on the show, just to kind of end it off here because I got another show to do soon enough. He's offering half measures. He's offering half measures, and he's trying to play the safe game for one reason or another. I'm not in his head, so I can't really say why or why not. But at the end of the day, he offered lukewarm commentary on the state of things in Canada, and he frames it all, or at least a lot of it, as an economic issue. Which, to be fair to him, a lot of it is economic. So I do understand that.
Well, he's also said he focuses on the financial side, and I feel like we got a lot of that in these podcasts, where
Yes.
he doesn't give a lot of opinions on social issues, but he does have ideas on the financial side, and it's a shame that we didn't really cut into that too deep in this episode.
Well, because once again, no, like we have touched upon it, like regarding like the immigration levels and getting permits and the time to approve permits down and all these different things. Like we have discussed it. It's just that at the end of the day, like this is very basic. This is like very it's
Yes.
on brand for him. It's quote unquote common sense, as he says. Okay, Great. We have those bases down. We agree with him on that. What are we going to go and do beyond that? He's weak on immigration. He's not willing to go through the ICE deportations, even though that's exactly what needs to happen in Canada. He's not willing to go hard on MAID. He's not willing to go hard on any of these things that actually have substance and teeth. He's just offering these quick economic solutions that can just be passed with bills or restructuring the government, but Canada as a nation is far bigger than that. The issues that Canada faces are far bigger than that. And whether or not he's actually the man for the task for it, I'm not seeing it right now, and I doubt that we will see it in time for an election. Even if the Conservatives get in power, great. So we don't have to deal with the carbon tax. They're going to wipe that out, even if they get the chance to. They're going to, cut down on immigration and all that. But the nation of Canada goes beyond just economic policy. We are not just an economic zone. There is a set culture here. There is a set history here that has to be not only acknowledged but respected and openly celebrated. There has to be some kind of unifying principle or principles that go beyond numbers on a spreadsheet. Because if we don't have that, then we don't really have much of a country in the first place. If this just becomes a place where people can immigrate from any corner in the world and get a job or do whatever the fuck they want, go to the international schools and do their student visas and all that, then we just become a pit stop. We just become a pit stop where Canadians grow up here, and then the moment that they get a whiff of opportunity, they go down south or they go elsewhere, and then we are just a husk of ourselves. We become a rest stop where people come here temporarily, use our resources, use our infrastructure to their benefit, and the nation that's actually paying for it, the people that are paying for all these services and benefits, they're stuck here paying the bill. As much as I'd love to, move to San Francisco and get paid $300,000, I'm not in a position to do that. I didn't choose to become a developer. I didn't choose to become a coder. I want to stay here in Canada, and I want to help build a nation into something bigger than itself so that it outlives me, you, and the next generations. Like this project, this idea of Canada First, it has to transcend what we are right now and what we will be in the future. It has to go beyond the vision of an election every 5 or 6 years or however many years. This project that we're on and this path that we're on, it's bigger than us, it's bigger than ourselves, and we have to see it like that. There is no other choice. If we are not outcome independent, if we focus on the elections and the by-elections and all these culture war issues, we're not going to go anywhere. There isn't going to be a Canada in a decade or so, even less than that. Right? Canada as it was, Canada as we grew up with. It's not going to exist if we keep down this path. We have to have some kind of underlying principles that go beyond just the basic economic. They have to go beyond just the basic rubber stamp facts that any politician that can read a spreadsheet can figure out. There has to be something bigger than that. There has to be a sense of national unity. There has to be a sense of national identity. If we don't have that, then why the fuck bother? What's the point of any of this?
Yeah.
Like why would I do this if I can have the same experience and I can just go to a different country? Like why does it matter? Those are the questions that Pierre should really be answering on the world stage, and he's not, and he's falling short of his, I don't know, not his goals, like whatever the fuck his goals are, but he's falling short of his mandate. He's falling short of his responsibility. Like
he's falling short of who he needs to be.
Yeah, like really. Look, I commend on him being in the opposition and for tolerating the liberals and for putting up with all this stuff. But the man, and I do say that specifically, the man that is going to have to turn this country around, that is going to have to step in and to actually transform this nation into something worth fighting for, into something worth dying for. It doesn't seem like it's going to be Pierre, and I'm not saddened by that. This is just a fact.
No, it's
right?
just coming to the realization of it. Because, like I said, we did,
Yeah.
or the right and conservatives in Canada did idolize him and put him up on a pedestal and give him their backing because we thought he was somebody he's clearly not, unfortunately, and it's just disappointing. You know,
Yeah, and
because
that's
I was
fine.
thinking, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
And that's fine because, as I said, like, the being outcome independent is that should be the main priority of anybody that is actually willing to build anything of substance, that is willing to live by the ideas of Canada first. Okay, so Pierre isn't going to be our guy. Okay, so we wait until the next one. We
Mhm.
as I've said on the show multiple times, the name of the game right now is amass as much influence as possible and infiltrate the halls of power. If that's not politics, then it's economics. If it's not economics, then it's academia or what have you. And then when you are in a position to actually do something, to push for a policy or to support a candidate who is going to live up to these ideals, that's when you take your moment. That's it.
Mhm.
Everything else is just preparation. Everything else is just window dressing. It's in preparation for that moment when we get our person in charge, our guy, who's going to get in there and do the things that need to be done. Until then, everything else it doesn't fucking matter. Not this culture war bullshit. Not the fucking transing of the kids. None of that matters. Like,
Mhm.
none of that matters. We need somebody who's going to unify the country around the vision of Canada first, and every single one of us needs to do our part once again to amass influence, infiltrate these organizations, and when you have the opportunity to actually do something about it, that's when you take your moment. And if enough people do that over a long enough period of time, eventually we will get to a place where Canada is no longer the laughing stock of the world. We're no longer a fucking joke on the national stage, where we're getting fucking reels sent to us from the MWIMB LGBT, whatever the fucking acronym is now, with the missing Indigenous women.
I'm actually impressed with how quickly she said that in the video or in the press conference. To be honest with you, she
Like,
practiced that in a mirror, hundred
that's
percent.
yeah, like that's what we're known for, man. When I game now and I tell people I'm Canadian, they laugh at me, and I understand why. I get it, because
Yeah,
we're a fucking joke of a country. Like, this is where we're at.
yeah. Well, I also realized talking just now that that whole thing about Pierre not wanting to badmouth the Canadian Prime Minister on foreign soil there. This is the problem with that, is that you gave us no real substance on your platform or on your perspectives on certain topics, but then you also won't badmouth your opposition. So it was literally just wasted air. You gave us nothing. And then on his, just as a final thought on his whole perspective there, he says that he wants to make Canada the freest country in the world. And from the conversation you and I have been having over the last 3 hours, roughly, if nothing else, we've come to the conclusion that we need more restrictions on everything. We need more restrictions on immigration. We need more restrictions on MAID. We need more restrictions on government funding and all these different programs, foreign aid, and all this other bullshit. We need more regulations on shit, not less. And I know that that's not what he means when he says the freest country in the world, but having that sentiment, saying absolutely nothing but dead air on two different podcasts, and then us coming to the realization that we need to be more strict on programs that you won't even talk about. It's just a funny coincidence to me. I had to say it. I had to bring it up. It's just
Yeah,
freest
no, that's
country.
yeah.
You want to make Canada the freest country in the world? I don't. I want to restrict the fuck out of it, really fast and really hard.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a decent point to make, and um I'll say this one last thing regarding his refusal to talk bad about Carney. Um, Carney's myriad conflicts of interest should have disqualified him for the running of the prime minister, and the fact that he is even a prime minister is a disgraceful
Joke.
insult to every Canadian, regardless of whether or not they supported him. This man is going to loot our nation for everything it's got. He's going to give contracts to companies and countries, for that matter, that are affiliated with the firm that he used to work for, Brookfield. And the fact that that doesn't consider, or that doesn't make people consider him as at least somewhat treasonous is beyond me. I don't know why people are shying away from that. The fact that he still has these shares of Brookfield in a blind trust, which will accumulate interest, and not just interest, but they will accumulate value, because every single policy that's being pushed by the government is in some way, shape, or form benefiting a company that has ties to Brookfield. This should automatically disqualify him from being the leader, and the fact that he even is one is once again an insult to every Canadian that has to now spend their waking hours working their jobs just so that they can put food on the table. And a good chunk of that is going to the government so that they can send it to fucking Sudan, Ukraine, Israel, what have you. It's absolutely disgraceful. And the fact that Pierre is shying away from saying that on a podcast, I don't know what to tell you, man. Whether it's political tradition or not, like, you just seem like kind of a pussy when you do that shit. So, that's all I'll say on that. And
Well, just as a final thought, I won't take up too much
yeah,
of your time. I'm
yeah,
gonna go. The funny thing is that we didn't even talk about the floor crossings and all that because on Rogan's podcast he says talking about COVID and, well, what rights have you retained? He goes, oh, well, we retained our democracy. Really? Because as far as I'm concerned, the democracy just fell while you were in opposition with these floor crossings and the Liberal government getting their majority through basically payoffs and bullshit means. Like,
yeah.
no, it's like you said, Canada's a joke. We're a disaster. Like I said, we're a joke. The democracy is dead as far as I'm concerned in this country because our vote doesn't matter. What else can I say? What else can you say on that? Like, just, God damn it, man. Anyways, had to get that one out there.
No, and I just realized the ending off on a lot of negativity. But no, like, look, the and this will be my final thought. Yes, a lot of the stuff is blackpilling. Yes, a lot of the stuff seems abysmal and that there is no end or no light at the end of the tunnel. This is going to take work. This is going to take sacrifice. This project to make Canada First a reality is going to take years to build. This is not something that happens overnight. This is something that we will have to do for the rest of our lives, potentially, just so that the next generation can enjoy it. That there is no other option if we don't devote ourselves to this cause to actually do something about this and not just vote our way out of it, because we're not going to vote our way out of it. Right? And yes, the country is in an abysmal state. Yes, I acknowledge that, but we have to go in through it with clear eyes and the understanding that along the way, eventually, incrementally, we are going to have an impact and the right person will be in charge and will be able to actually take actions that will put us back on the global stage, that will make our citizens proud of our nation, proud to live for it, proud to die for it, proud to defend it, if worst comes to worst. This is possible, okay? Everybody loves a comeback story, and we're just beginning that. So, take like all the doomerism and everything we've talked about. Yes, accept the reality that we live in. There is work to be done, and you got to get on board. Because if you don't, then fine. Go back to your Netflix. Go fucking smoke all your weed. Do whatever it is that you want to do to distract yourself. But there's work to be done. So, without further ado, yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in. I'm going to be going live in a little bit with a new show that I'm doing with a couple of people, so I'll be posting a link shortly. But in any case, thank you, Mr. Fireside, for joining me for yet another episode. It's good to be back. I'm glad that we finally got back on track with this show.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great. I love having these conversations with you.
Yeah. And if anyone wants to check us out, as per always, go to the link in the bio. We'll be posting in the description of every video. If you want to support us, just like, comment, subscribe. That's really all we need. Otherwise, if you're feeling so inclined, you can always send us some crypto there or tip on Rumble if you have the Rumble wallet. And yeah, in any case, we'll see you guys next week.